Welcome councillors, staff and the gallery to the 15th of September 2020 council meeting. I think we're all here. We'll move on to minutes of the previous meeting for confirmation. They were the council meeting held on the 18th of August and a special council meeting held on the 2nd of September. Someone like to move those minutes? Councillor Miller and seconded Councillor Hearn. All those in favour? Carried. There's no matters arising from the previous meetings, no petitions. We have some deputations at 9:30, and so we'll break at that stage for those deputations. Page 5, the Mayor's report. Someone like to move the Mayor's report? Councillor De Vries and seconded Councillor Havik. Any questions at all? Councillor Barrett.
Just sorry about that, just after a little bit more information if you could about two items you mentioned, both down south where I live, the mountain bike event over Mount Crawford and the Adelaide Wine Capital Trail. If you could just give us a little bit more information on those, if you could please, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, that was a meeting I was invited to for the mountain bike. In the end, it was probably more information for me as to what they were proposing. They're looking at holding two events because of Cuddly Creek's been burnt out in the forest. And so this is two events in an area that us mountain bikers know and refer to as Pusey Vale. There's been some diligent people up there who has created about 40 kilometres of single track, and the forestry have now engaged somebody to do an audit on the tracks so they can rate them. And they're looking at having events up there in Pusey Vale. Where we're talking about is just off of Browns Road, and these single track events are very big and very popular. So it's a new event coming into our area, no road closures, no cost to us at all, but it was really just, they wanted me to be aware that this was happening, and the forest is looking at providing car park and forestry land and all those other things. So these things are really good because the fallout is that they'll probably drift into Williamstown or Mount Pleasant for some of their goodies, and that's good for our economy as far as that's concerned. The other one to do with the Adelaide Wine Capital cycling meeting was just an update of where we were in respect to our grant application. And I might throw to Ms Thomas, and just because we've had a further meeting with our other affiliates from the other councils, and so I might, it's important that we probably just give you a brief update on that one, Ms Thomas.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you. Yes, we were unsuccessful with the Bullingbetter Regions Fund grant application back in, I think it might have been March or April time now, and so we've been really regrouping around what the next steps need to be. And as the Mayor indicated, we had another meeting then with all of the other council representatives electronically yesterday, and the sense of that meeting is that we should, given that the current climate around grants and funding is much more around infrastructure rather than strategies and plans, that we should potentially be using the funds that we still have to try and get that document done independently of going for another grant, and what that looks like. That will come back to council at some point in the near future, and yeah, really just to regroup around that strategy and what the next steps are. Obviously with COVID we've been a little bit distracted with other things across all of the councils, so we were just mindful that we actually hadn't had time to get everybody back around the table and come back up with the next steps. So really that's what that was, and as I say, there'll be a full update coming back in the next month or so, possibly not the October meeting but the November.
Yeah, there is still a real genuine appetite from the other councils to push forward and make the connections that we've been talking about. and there might be some news shortly on something in respect to that, as Mr. Thomas has indicated. Any further questions? Councillor Schilling.
Yes, I was just wanting to ask a question on the waste company meeting. Was that involving Springton, or is that just if you could just fill us in on that, please?
I'm trying to remember what meeting it was. Waste company meeting. Yeah, I'm going to throw to Gary on that one and update me on what that meeting was about, because I can't remember. Oh, okay.
We've got a...
Sorry, which meeting?
Oh, the meeting that I had to do with the waste company representative. I'm going to take that one on notice. I can't remember. That's age. Yeah, look, I'll go back into my notes and try to remember what that was, because there was quite a few meetings, and there's a few other meetings that I haven't got there too. So it'll come to us by the end of the meeting, I'm sure. Any further questions? Councillor Louise-Smith.
Thanks, Mayor. I just note that you've met with a couple Parliament members in the past month or so. Can you update us on your meetings with Frank Piccolo, MLC, and Tony Piccolo, MP, please?
Yeah, Frank Pangalo just came along just to have a general overview chat about a number of things. And I guess one of them was to ask us questions about our position on Oscar, which we had to explain to him that Oscar is not part of our council, and which come as a bit of a surprise to Mr. Pengelly. But you know, it was really just a catch up, and obviously there was a bit of chat about a tourist train and where that was sort of leading, and so we just put forward our council's, or the council's position, and that was more aligned with our ERI as to what we submitted to the government. And I think there's a little bit more movement and some questions being sort of asked about our EOI and what the context of that is at the moment. The other one was a meeting with Tony Piccolo, and that was really just a general discussion, being aware that he is now looking at running for the for Schubert in our electorate, and I think he was looking for a shadow cabinet meeting within our council area, which we've just said, well, we're here and we're not either way, so it was just a general chat, and I think I'll throw to the CEO. He might have a few more things to say.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. No, not on that particular one. What was the other thing they took to us? They're hosting shadow cabinet and wanted to access to the community facility.
Yep.
There's nothing remarkable, but I was going to update you about, Mr. Mayor. The meeting with the waste company representatives of Gary Mavrinac was one many moons ago, because you've used it all.
You excuse me.
Cut and paste.
Don't do it.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that. Well, we'll delete that in the official documents. Thank you. No wonder I couldn't remember. It's probably last year. Any further questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carry. Consensus agenda. Any items that anyone wishes? Councillor Louise-Smith.
Yeah, I've got 3 items I'd like to withdraw, please. Item 4.1.1.1, the 5G response. Item 4.2.2.1, the Communications and Engagement Report. And item 4.5.5.1, waste management.
What was the third one?
4.5.5.
Thank you.
I'd like to withdraw 4.2.1.2.
Any further items? If not, someone move those other than those that have been withdrawn. Councillor Hearn and seconded Councillor De Vries. All those in favour? Carried. Councillor Wees.
I have to work out where I'm up to now. The 5G response that we received from the Communications Minister, I'm just wondering, now we've got this response, we obviously received a deputation which prompted writing to the Minister. Are we going to forward this response to those people who presented to Council?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I've already communicated with them on the previous response and do with this one.
Councillor Barrett.
I actually spoke to the lady involved, a lady by the name of Linda Moulay. I spoke to her yesterday, and she is aware of this letter, and I've directed her towards the minutes of this agenda, so she will be fully aware.
I'll still write to them.
Councillor Willie Smith, the next item you had.
Do we need to move and accept the last one?
Yeah, I do, thank you. Will you move that item? Thank you, yes. And seconded Councillor Johnston, yes, thank you. All those in favour? Next item.
Okay, the next one, the Communication Engagement Report. This is something that's been playing on my mind for a little while. This area is obviously something that's really important to the business that we do. Communicating with the community and making sure that we're getting our messages across and getting them across in a timely and accurate manner is really important to making sure we're an effective council. I appreciate the reports that we've been receiving, but essentially what I'd like to do is I'd like to see more detail in reports going forward. We only get these reports quarterly, and they're essentially just a list of media releases or things like that. So I'd like to see more information on what's actually been involved in some of these things. So I know some of the work here is around funding applications, or it notes community engagement. I'd like to know a bit more about what's actually been entailed, and also the results of those reports, or our social media statistics, our website statistics, all that sort of stuff. I think it's really important that we're getting that information back, and so that we can make sure that we're continuously looking at ways that we can improve in this area. As I said, it's really important for our council. I've just sent the CEO a suggested motion for this. If he's received it already, I'm happy to read that one out. So my recommendation for the Communications Engagement Report is 1, that the report be received and noted. 2, that council request future reports provide additional commentary on project requirements and outcomes. And 3, that key communications, including website and social media growth and targets, be included in reports. And I'm happy to answer any other questions.
I'll just wait for that to come up on the screen so other members can digest it.
Give us a minute to get that. Get it off the email.
Okay.
No problems with any of that. I would comment that our website is not sophisticated enough. The new one will be. We will be putting heat map tools and all sorts of things over that. Those arrangements. Yeah, we won't talk about which one it is. The genesis of those reports actually came out of a strategy that went to the previous council in terms of some minor additional resources to do extra work. We are now developing a communications strategy that went to CNT last week, and we're getting an information plan that will come forward as part of the comms. That's part of a corporate plan activity. And what I would recommend, or how I would implement that, is actually I would include it in our quarterly performance reporting outcomes rather than another report. So it won't happen next month, but certainly some of this stuff is on the radar. Perhaps if times, also just thinking off the top of my head, maybe I can also give you a quick look at what the strategy looks like at the next workshop as well.
Okay, I have a mover. Is there a seconder? Yeah, Councillor True.
Is that including the stats from the Barossa Cares website as well? I cannot remember because I can't find it right now to look. Is that, Joe? Can we include Barossa Cares? Because I think also that's going to be quite activated in the community.
CEO.
Sorry.
The short answer to that is that's not as simple because it hasn't been built with as many smarts. So we'll come back to you about that conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll second it.
Seconded Councillor De Vries. You want to speak any further on that, Councillor Lee-Smith?
I think I've probably said enough. As I said, I just feel this is a really important area for us, and I feel that it's an area that often gets overlooked. So by shining the light on this and looking further at what we're actually doing, and also especially our targets, because it doesn't matter how good you do something, especially communications, you can always do it better. So I feel this is a really good way of making sure that this is top of mind, not only for elected members, but also staff going forward.
Councillor De Vries, you wish to add further?
I just think any information, given that we're seeing social media becoming more and more a part of the communication within the Barossa, the more we understand it, the more we understand what data is out there.
Councillor Johnston.
Just wouldn't mind asking two questions. Yeah, sure. Just a question, what's meant by number one? I'm not really sure, I'm not clear what I'm voting on.
Councillor Lee-Smith.
The report be received and noted.
Number two.
Number two. yeah, number two.
So provide additional commentary around what's actually included in that. So at the moment, all we get is a list. So for this month, we've got 8 or 10 items listed, but what's actually been involved in doing that work. As I said, it may be a media release. It may say community engagement. There's also a note, some work around funding applications. So essentially a brief synopsis of what has actually gone into that work, particularly the community engagement stuff. It's very easy to say community engagement, but what's that actually entail and what are the results from
that? Question for the CEO. I understand earlier that we've got the platform to do that as far as the resources from your earlier comment, is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, that's 2 questions. The new system certainly has smarts in it that can do a lot of this, but we could also put it across social media and absolutely through Google Analytics and other tools. We are building that in. We're not experts in Google Analytics, so it's going to take time to do some of this. Yes, we want to learn from data. My staff know I love data. Anything we report, we'll take more resource, absolutely, but we'll bring that back and have that conversation as part of the constantly have a strategy. We're working on it. Yep.
Councillor Johnston.
Still trying to get my head around number two. So what in fact you're asking for is just the press releases bundled with this report?
Well, the media releases would be handy, and actually I had a conversation with Councillor Schilling about this earlier, in that it would be great if councillors could be CC'd on the media releases when they went out, so we're not finding out about the news when everybody else does in the paper each week. But no, further to that, I'm not asking for the media releases to be included. As I said, where we're, a media release is straightforward. That's pretty self-explanatory, but where it's stating community engagement, where it's stating funding applications, what sort of work is included in that, particularly the community engagement. So this is not just communications, we're talking about communications and engagement in this report. I just want to see some of the work that's going into it.
Councillor Schilling.
Yes, I'd just like to echo what Councillor West said about being CC'd in on media releases, because that would be really beneficial for me, particularly as a new elected member, to be kept up to date with what's actually happening day to day, week to week. So I would appreciate that. Thank you.
CEO.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, we actually do very little media release. It's actually media response. And quite honestly, more than happy to give you whatever, but I don't want to end up media released by 12 people. At the end of the day, you empower me and my staff to do this stuff. We'll give you whatever you want. But my concern now and part of the conversation is that we're going to end up writing media releases by committee. That's certainly not, I think, the intent of what Councillor Smith's asking. So I'm just putting that in the mix. And you know, if you want media responses, you'll get plenty of those. But we actually don't do media releases. It's a bit of an antiquated concept. We tend to use social media, website, all that sort of stuff more often. I would also encourage you to be checking website and Facebook sites as well. But yeah, I have no problems with the resolution. Let's just have a detailed conversation at the workshop and design something that doesn't put a massive amount of resource just giving you reports instead of doing the work.
Brief summary. Yeah. Just a brief summary with maybe a
That's
paragraph.
like when a media release goes out, BCC election. It's not. We can talk about that at work.
Yeah, I think we've still always got to be conscious of what resources we need and what we ask for and what hangs off of that, which I'll touch on a bit later. Motion's been moved and seconded. Any further questions for clarification? All those in favour? Carried. Your next item, please.
This one's much the same as the first item. So we received this letter from Springton Progress Association regarding waste. Out there, the recommendation is that the report be received and noted. I just wanted to know, what are we doing in terms of getting back to Springton Progress Association and letting them know what's in the report here.
Member.
Thank you, Mayor. Partly just to wait to see if there's anything coming out of today's meeting, if any council has anything to raise. Councillor Barrett did speak to me and asked a couple of questions, so I guess we will respond after today's meeting. In terms of where we are, obviously in terms of looking at opening Springton transfer station more often, speaking to Mr Elding, obviously one of the key issues is resources. So actually having available staff to actually open the facility more. I'll let Mr Elding refer to that more. And also we're still trying to resolve how the voucher system could operate. We have had conversations with Cookle to use that as a facility. But yeah, the voucher system still needs some mechanics around it. But yeah, hopefully after today we'll be able to respond back.
Mr Elding, you got anything further you wish to add?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Just to follow on from that discussion, any changes to Springton and how that operates is a change of level of service. So there ultimately need to be a report to council. If council decides that's how they'd like to progress with that, it need to come to council's report. So that's the discussions we've had internally in developing a report and then to bring that back to council for a change of level of service, because ultimately I'm driven by the operating budget, which is set for notionally a number of operating days at the Springton quarry. If we increase that, it's going to affect the operating budget, so I need a decision of council.
I think the opening times was initially set was based on the data, because at one stage it used to be opened going back some time, fortnightly. But there wasn't the amount of use back then, so that was why the once a month became the opening time. But if the data is showing more people are using it and there's more activities there, well then, as indicated, that can be a report that you can make a decision on and budget it accordingly. Councillor Smith.
Just on that, do we have any figures around the actual usage on the days it is open? Like, is it busy or not?
Yeah, perhaps when we bring a report back on, we can provide the data on that. I don't have the data in front of me, but yes, it is busy. It's a well-used service, particularly on the half-price days.
CEO?
So I'm just going to divert all those public members that just came in through that back door. Can you please go and sign in? Have you done that?
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. I just like make sure I'm not going to end up in jail, that's all.
Yeah, we don't want you in jail either.
Big 5,060 is not great.
Is there any further action or, yeah, okay, so would you like to move that item be received? Someone second? Councillor Hearn, all those in favour? Councillor Louise Smith, I understand you've got one more?
Nope, that was me.
That was you? Oh,
It's Russell.
okay.
Councillor Johnson.
Who was my other?
Councillor Johnson.
Councillor Johnston, that's it, Councillor Johnston.
I'm not sure whether I'm in the right frame of mind for this, because this constitution is jotty and it needs to be really well approved before it gets, and it's silent about how soon the members have got to know what it looks like. So it's, you know, for example, it's got a thing like a governance committee of the board will appoint the members. It's a really critical thing as to how the members are appointed to something, and yet there's no discussion about how the governance committee will be formed. So this thing is empowered by a minister who appoints a presiding member who then presides over everything, and so the power sits with one person. So I'm just concerned that we could just sort of sleepwalk along and just let this evolve, and I don't know whether I'm in the right place to be talking about it, but it would be wise for some advice to be sought about whether this in fact is the best way to manage that organisation for which we contribute some money and have executive time devoted to. That's all I want to say. So I wonder whether there could be some feedback go to the RDA to tidy it up a bit and think about it a bit more.
Yeah, you got any further question on that one? No. Yeah, I'm not certain. It's a committee outside of our bounds. So, would you like to move that?
Yes, I'll move. We know it.
Yep. Someone second? Councillor Hearn, all those in favour of that item? Carried. Members, it is 9:30 and we do have deputations with us. And our first deputation is from Miss Pauline Martin, the Tananda tree program. Miss Pauline Martin. Come on up.
But I'm going to make sure I comply with the law first.
It's just on and off. In your mic, so when I turn mine off. On and off is the mic, and
So just to drive
Okay,
on,
thank
when
you.
somebody else is speaking.
No one else is speaking.
so
When they ask questions, I will need to
Okay.
turn it off.
Ms. Martin, I've allowed 10 minutes, so I'll give you a minute warning if you get close to that 10 minutes, and then we'll have 5 minutes for questions. So over to you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't
know that yet. Good morning, Mr Mayor, councillors.
Just press.
I'm not on yet.
That's it.
I'm on. Good morning, Mr Mayor, councillors and members of the public. My name is Pauline Martin. I have a degree in education and a diploma in garden design, and I've lived in Tananda since 1985. I have a passionate interest in this town, and I want residents to be really proud of their town and to make the most of its considerable assets. I represent a group called the Tananda Main Street Project, which has had meetings with the council, with various members of the council over the last year. We're keen to beautify the main street, particularly with a view to more shade, more trees, and that sort of thing. We welcome this opportunity to give you community feedback
but are disappointed that we've only had a relatively short time before we discovered, or since we discovered, that many of the trees were to be removed and about the roundabout being revegetated. So we've done the best we can with a very limited opportunity, but it is great to have that opportunity to give some feedback to the council. Okay, so we can move on to the first one. This one. Street trees are assets of significant value. We all know of dry, parched towns with very few trees. Contrast this image with the impact of this beautiful leafy green avenue at Harndorf. How do these two pictures make you feel? Which town invites you to get out of your car and explore? Trees make our lives more comfortable by providing cool, shady areas, protecting us from wind, heat and dust, giving privacy and protection from noise and glare. Trees improve our health by removing pollutants from the air and producing oxygen. Studies have shown that they reduce fatigue and stress. They've even been shown to reduce the amount of pain relief needed after surgery. Even a picture of a tree has that impact. Despite our level of technology, we're still very strongly connected to our environment. With all this in mind, it is disappointing to see that there are still streets in Tananda without a single tree. Selection of trees for height. When planting a tree beneath a power line, why plant a tree which is known to grow to 15 to 25 metres high? Just think how much money would be saved by planting a smaller tree which needed no trimming. Here are 3 examples of worth consideration of trees which will only grow to about 5 metres. There's a new variety of the Manchurian pear, the mini capital, which only grows to 5 metres, some of the crepe myrtles, and a new variety, it's not actually a Manchurian pear, but it's still a type of pear, very similar type of tree, only grows to 5 metres. Selection of trees, invasive species. The ash is a commonly planted street tree in Tananda, despite the fact that it is an environmental weed. It does look lovely when the trees are mature, but it has a lot of issues with the environment. It seeds freely and is an invasive plant along the Para River. It outcompetes local vegetation despite the best efforts of the local bush volunteers. As fast as they're removed, we see more being planted. How illogical. Instead of working as a community together to improve our environment, we end up having groups of people working against each other. Inappropriate pruning of trees under power lines. All too often we see the results of brutal treatment by untrained workers. Regular severe pruning creates ugly, weakened trees, which are prone to termites. If we're serious about promoting and beautifying our town and protecting our assets, we must teach our pruners how to trim and without damaging them. At the very least, there should be some uniformity in the way in which pruning is done. Root damage. Many of our older trees were planted before there was paving and footpaths. Nowadays there's very little opportunity for rainwater to penetrate the soil near the tree. The roots spread out near the surface instead of growing deeply. It can be expensive. Root guard, when correctly installed, can help redirect the roots. Deep watering. Providing deep water significantly reduces the root damage. This is a Treenet sump. It's one way of providing deep watering to street trees. It was developed in Adelaide and has a worldwide patent. This invention makes a lot of sense. It's an inlet in the gutter which allows water to flow into a sump every time the water runs past in the gutter. The roots then grow down to reach this deeper water. Treenet is a highly regarded national urban tree research group based in Adelaide. It's independent and not for profit. that can provide invaluable research information for councils regarding tree selection, performance and maintenance. As our trees are one of our town's most important assets, we urge the council to become members of Treenet. We will all benefit from the use of up-to-date knowledge and best practice for our trees. Does council have strategies in place to deal with issues such as which trees to plant, areas requiring more shade, correct pruning techniques, keeping up to date with tree selection and management ideas? Root guard, if incorrectly installed, can actually make the tree unstable, which has its own problems. Our second topic is the landscaping of Cromer's Crossing Roundabout. By way of comparison, this is the southern entrance to Tananda. Instantly recognisable, attractive and welcoming. Complementary planting of roses and Manchurian pears. It demonstrates foresight and commitment by the council and the community at the time. Do we have the courage to create an equally iconic and beautiful northern entrance to Tananda? This is our design, a roundabout of roses. It's a simple, formal design, colourful and vibrant. It shows consistency in the streetscape with the use of roses and Manchurian pears at both ends of town. Corton letters spelling Tananda are sited on poles above the roses. And if I can work this little pointer thing, right. At the moment there are lots of Manchurian pears growing. In this area here, there are already 2 Manchurian pears flowering. And down the side of Vinevale Road, there's a whole avenue of them. There are also quite a lot along Murray Street, but we can come to that later. So there we have a vision of what it could look like with some Manchurian pears in the centre, which can be pruned up underneath for clear vision. Corton letters on poles spelling out the word Tananda. And this installation would face Barossa Valley Way, so that the main amount of traffic coming into town would be faced with that sign. The cycle path would be integrated into the roundabout using this design. It would be double the impact at no extra cost. The existing row of red roses reinforces and enhances the roses on the roundabout. These roses are extremely popular photo opportunity for visitors from all over the world. How good would this look as the tour down under ride past? Planting scheme. The key plants are the red roses and Manchurian pear trees, both chosen for their ability to thrive in our community and to integrate with other plantings in the area. Natives have been chosen to be mass planted as they provide local habitat and require minimal maintenance once established. All the plants are located to provide clear sight lines. Manchurian pear, oops. Oh, that one's already done, I think. Have I done that one? Sorry. These are the natives that I've included in the design. One of those natives, the Grevillea lavandulacea, actually is local to this actual area. So it would require minimal maintenance. Quite lovely red flowers. And the Westringia, the bottom one, I envisaged that planted behind the row of roses to increase the humidity behind the roses and reduce the effect of the wind drying out the plants. That way the roses would be more likely to thrive. Manchurian pears grow very well in our environment. There's already a number of these at the roundabout. In fact, there's 18 along Murray Street, set in from the road. I'm not sure if they're on council property or on private property. There seems to be almost a parallel line of them between the property and the road. There are 3 very young ash trees at the intersection on Barossa Valley Way, which have been planted quite recently. If we're going to put Manchurian pear around each of those other areas in the design that I came up with from the beginning, it would be ideal if we could remove those 3 ash trees and replace them with Manchurian pear as well. The Manchurian pear, there's plenty of space. I stepped it out the other day, plenty of space to put Manchurian pear along several of the adjacent road entries. Opportunity only strikes once. This is the best opportunity this community will ever have to create such a vibrant visual impact and a unique welcome to our town. It sends a strong message that we care about our town and are prepared to invest in the future. It's not just about being a premier wine region. We have beautiful towns too. Why not create something truly beautiful and significant whenever we have the chance? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Martin, for your presentation and the body of work that you've put into it. There's some great insight in there, some good solid suggestions. I think we're on the same page as far as the roundabout's concerned. We've already looked at some of the Manchurian pears adding to the existing, which your concept. So we thank you for your concept and the thoughts associated with that. Some of the roses we've already discussed of continuing those lines in that area. But we sort of thought at this particular time we're going to park the centre of the roundabout, work on the fringes, and then come up with something that we think will be, you know, hopefully a bit of a wow factor. I do remember the southern entrance well. I just about run out of town when we cleared it out first, but I said wait until it's finished. It'll be great. So
that's the thing. You need some vision.
yeah. So any questions, members?
Yes.
Councillor Havik.
I'd just like to say thanks to you ladies for coming in, and it's a well put together presentation, very informative and to the point. So hopefully we can work that and some good for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Not, would someone like to receive and note the Councillor DeVries? And seconded, Councillor Hearn. All those in favour? Carried. Thanks very much for your presentation, your insight, and the way in which you presented. Well done. Thank you. Members, we'll move on to the
Nice work.
members, the next presentation is in relation to the Angus Park and the Qriket nets, and Mr. Fab DeBiase. Have I got it right, sir, or did I miss the mark?
I know that's close enough.
Welcome.
Morning. How are you? Probably thought out of you. And the button is yeah, cool. Good morning, Mayor Lange, councillors and members of the public. Well, that's going to be a hard act to follow after that.
That's fine.
Excuse my lack of public speaking skills. Okay, my name's Fab, and I'm here today to discuss the proposal relocations of the Qriket nets at Angus Recreation Park. I live at 14 Radford Road, directly opposite the new proposed Qriket nets site. I've lived there happily for the past 10 years. Well, happily until now. I'm disappointed and a little bit angry to find out that the Qriket new proposal site's right in front of my home. This will have a huge impact on my everyday life and obviously property value as well. The visual impact will be evident every time I look out the front window, every time I have a coffee and breakfast on my front porch, every time I garden, pick up the mail, and every time I drive out the driveway, I'll be looking at these unsightly nets. I've worked hard to purchase and maintain my 1905 character-built home, and it's my sanctuary. And this proposal would destroy that for me. Obviously, there's probably two options at this point: to relocate the nets altogether, where we'll have a minimal impact on residents and minimal impact on removing of trees, or leave it where it is, where the proposal is now, and make the whole net removable on the off season, and have it landscaped appropriately. Me personally, I would like to see the nets relocated. We have suggested a few locations in the past, which have come up with some objections. I think the perfect new location will be north side of the barbecue area, the entrance on Park Road. This location has no visual impact to nearby residents, and minimal tree removal. I think there's one tree to be removed. I do apologise, I haven't got any photos, but I can send them through at a later date. This area is level and will require a lot less earthworks than the Radford site proposal, and close to toilet facilities for the guys that are using the Qriket nets. In the past, the Qriket president made a big issue regarding the shadow on the western side of the Qriket nets. This will have no shadows in the summer, so they can practice there a lot longer than probably they can where they are now. So it has a lot of pluses. And obviously, the second option is to locate it in front of our places, obviously, which will be quite disappointing. But if that's the case, to have the Qriket nets totally removable in the off season, it's the decision made is not just for the Qriket club. It's to where the nets are located. These nets are going to be only used once or twice a week during the Qriket season. But we as residents have to look at these eyesores for 365 days a year. I understand the importance of country sporting clubs and what they bring to the community. They also have to understand the impact they have on the residents that live near the park. Remember, we are all taxpayers and we are all ratepayers, so we should all have our say and not be just led by one group. I want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. For me, the option one to relocate it at a different location would suit and have less impact on the residents of Radford Road. I think we've got that park is a big area. It's not like it's a park in the city that you're limited to where you can put things. I just think we should take our time and make the right decision. I understand that all the funds and everything have been approved and everyone wants to go forward with this, and I don't want to stop that, but I want the right decision to be made for the residents and for the club essentially too. So thank you for letting me have my opinion and voice my opinion today. I just want to leave you with one thought. You know, would you guys, you know, like to have an unsightly cricket net in front of your place? So have a bit of a think about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And any questions that any members may have? Councillor Johnston.
Thanks for coming in and speaking to us. Would you be happy with the proposal of removal nets?
Look, it's not ideal. Obviously, we would still have to look at that unsightly net for, you know, 4 or 5 months of the year. I'm just looking at it. There's some different aspects of that, you know, regarding cost. You know, we got sent information that the removal of the nets cost no extra than having fixed. I just think too that the current site they're proposing, there's a lot of trees that have to be removed, and a lot of earthworks as well, where surely there's numerous other places in the park that will minimise the cost of earthworks and removal of trees, more importantly too, and less visual impact for the residents.
Any further questions? Councillor Haybick.
On the weekend I drove up there and I parked in front of the place. I didn't want to intrude or knock on the door and walk up on the front veranda, but I can understand where you come from. The thing I did pick up was that you look from the front of your house across the road, embankment, which is across down from. I then drove in there and parked my car where I assumed that. And I thought, well, sitting on your veranda, you only see the top end of the nets with the front. You won't see the top. It didn't look as bad at that stage when I looked at that and thought, okay, they'll see the top of the nets, but I didn't see that as such a big issue. I don't know, and if they were removable nets, I think half the problem would be gone. But I understand where you come from, and I would say that the people up the other end of the street have been looking at the old nets for God knows how many years. So, and then I looked around and I thought, well, where else would we place the nets that would be convenient to the cricket players? And I don't think there's too many other spots. It could be, but unless someone pointed them out to me. So, and I don't think the nets should be completely over the others, the practice nets completely over the other side of the oval, because it's away from where the cricket people are. So, yes, so just thought I'd mention that.
I think I might just say, look, we have got other presentations on this matter, so what I might suggest is we receive and note Mr. DeBayer's presentation, and then we can have the debate. Then we can have the debate then a little bit later.
Receive all three as part of the debate.
Okay, all right. We'll receive all three part of it. So thanks for that, and you're welcome to stay around until we get to that item at the end of the other presentations. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Members, the next presentation is listed for 10, so I think we'll move on with the agenda that we've got before us, and that is on page 196. And that's to do with the election of the Local Government Association of SA LGA President. Members, there's a report there, and we are looking to put forward our vote as to who we would choose as the Mayor of the LGA President. Councillor Boothby.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we nominate Mayor Jan Claire Wisdom at Overall's Council as the LGA President.
Thank you. We have a motion for the Adelaide Hills Councillor, Mayor. Councillor De Vries. Seconded?
Yep.
You wish to speak to the motion?
I need to say that obviously quite specifically with the recent crisis, both bushfires and COVID, I think that Mayor Wisdom has actually, showed some amazing leadership, and I just think it'd be nice to support her in that. I was, on reading her information provided, I think she would do a good job from what I can see in that role.
Councillor De Vries?
I think of the three, she's probably the most sympathetic and has more alignment with this district than certainly one of the others. So with that in mind, I think it's a good choice.
Any further comment? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Page 212, the Community and Advocacy Plan, drafts for community consultation. Page 212. Move Councillor Johnston. And here's Councillor, and seconded Councillor Boothly. You wish to speak to the document, sir?
Only to point out that I'm incredibly impressed with the way in which the existing feedback has been noted and incorporated into the new plan. I'm really impressed with it. So if we continue that, the only thing I'd like to do is ask a question. In the past, we've probably had face-to-face consultations. Are we likely to entertain that, or is that just not on the cards with?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did an enormous amount of work, obviously, on the community plan 4 years ago. Council adopted a review mechanism only. We'll do the normal engagement processes, absolutely. I guess the days of doing town hall meetings, in my view, are very much dead in the water. If you want us to do so, we can. Ultimately, your communication engagement plan to adopt.
Accept your advice.
Don't get that many showing up there.
I do remember quite well after the amalgamation we had a big fanfare up at the Angus office, invited everyone along, and I think my mum was the only one that came. Councillor De Vries, you wish to speak to that?
No, just to echo what was said, I remember when town hall meetings were quite well attended, but those days are long gone.
Thank you. Yeah, CEO.
There's one amendment that's come through from feedback, and I've apologised profusely to the Mayor. I have to put OAM at the end of his name, so that's the only amendment I'm going to
Does the motion need to be altered to give you the right
I think it's a draft.
Thank you. And I echo the sentiments of Councillor Johnston. The fact is there was a body of work, and I congratulate all staff involved. In the past, we've engaged consultants to do this work, and this has all been done in-house, and an enormous task. So to the CEO and all involved, thank you very much for where you've got to, and we'll wait for the community feedback. All those in favour? Carried. Members, will go back to the deputations, and this is the Qriket nets at Angus and Rec Park, and Miss Kim Vallis. I've probably got that wrong too.
So much better than we had once.
Thank you. Thank you, and you did just fine.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I wasn't kept the right deadline.
Do you want them for everybody?
You can pass them around for anyone who would like to look at it, at those. I'm sorry, I don't think there's quite enough for everyone.
We'll share
But, I'm
One
happy
for
to
everyone,
send
I'll
them
go
to you.
photo.
Oh, okay, well, as you wish, thank you.
So if you want to turn your mic on,
Yes.
that's fine, you can stand or sit, whatever, however you choose.
If it's okay and you don't mind us stand?
No, that's fine.
Everybody can see me better?
Yep.
So, Mayor, councillors and members of the public, thank you very much for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Kim, and my husband Ian and I, Ian sitting in the back of the room, have lived at number 12 Bradford Road for 10 years. In fact, our home is the original home on the old Bald Hill Road. So it was built in 1876, dubbed Laurel Cottage, and we really enjoy living in Anguston, and we love our property, and we love the park. Our home is directly across from the park, as I guess you would know. Fab is our neighbour at number 14. We enjoy a beautiful overlook of green trees and the use of the park, and we every single day notice that the park is a well-loved and enjoyed location for all sorts of uses, not just sport, but people walking, looking at walking the dogs, playing with their children, getting some exercise. So it is a well-enjoyed location, and that's something that we appreciate quite a lot. We recently became aware of the proposed change location for the cricket nets. So the cricket nets, as you would know, are on the Radford Road side. They were going to be in the original master plan recreation park, quite close to where they are now. And apparently there are some reasons for making a move of those, and they've been proposed to be moved directly across from our property. I'll say a few things about the cricket batting nets. Probably the most unattractive feature and structure in the park. Everything else in the park, has an aesthetic. The cricket batting nets honestly don't, and I've made a simple handout, and again, my apologies for not getting that to you to put on the big screen. I was advised of the deadline after it had passed, but I did go out and take quite a few photographs, and I looked at the master plan and also the new proposed plan and made a few drawings and sketches. So I hope that you'll appreciate my amateur effort here, but just some way to convey in pictures what I want to say, which is that the cricket nets are not beautiful. The location and the cricket club says that its location is where they wish it to be. However, we weren't informed or consulted on that. In fact, both Fab, our neighbour, and ourselves noticed this when we were consulted on the location of the proposed construction for the playing rooms and the changing rooms. And when we saw that, we saw the new map that you see here, the brighter green, and the new location for that. And I believe we both contacted the council planners to talk about that, and we were informed that that because the cricket batting net move and change was not part of the change room proposal construction, that it was out of scope. But I want to thank Joe Thomas and Mayor Lang and the Cricket Club for coming out and talking with us and explaining a little bit more about where they were proposed and how that would work. There are other locations in the park where the cricket nets could be. I understand that this is not an easy decision of where to put them, but certainly there are other locations I've included. On the lower left of the chart, I've just picked some near the tennis courts where there's already hardscaping and fenced locations and not a lot of trees that would need to be removed. So that's just one thing to point out to you, that there are other locations that could be a site for the cricket nets. And if the cricket net location is decided that it can't be anywhere else for lots of reasons, the visual impact of them could be changed. So the first thing that we were told is originally that the cricket nets would not be proposed to be removed, that although they could be retracted, that the side that you bat towards, I guess what it is, would be a fixed structure, and also that the top nets would be fixed in place. And in fact, that is what the cricket club members who came out and met with us said, that they would be in favour of it being a permanent structure. That part of the structure is exactly right in front of our property, and it is visible. Our house is placed a bit up. The original siting of our house is such that it's on an elevation, and so although there's an elevation looking down, we would be able to see that, and it's not pretty. I mean, I've put some pictures on the back of what it looks like now. I know that the new design is a little bit different, but it's still fencing, hardscaping, and trees would need to be removed. We were originally told about 4 trees would need to be removed, but I went out on the weekend and looked at the paint marks where it's proposed that the cricket nets would go, and I've mapped that out. I've drawn it in the chart on the lower right. Again, just a very simplistic citizen's effort to draw here. I've put a little white band that shows the expanse. It's actually quite a big space, and at least 8 trees will need to be removed. On the back, on the upper right, I've put a big circle around there so you can see, and I duly note the comment that was made earlier about the fact that maybe all of the nets might not be visible, but remember, a lot of trees are going to go. There's going to be a big gap in the space. So actually, I took that picture this weekend while there was footy being played, so lots of if you look carefully, you can see all the cars parked near the driveway that goes around the oval. And imagine if all of those trees are gone, because they're all going to go. The big pine trees, the carob trees in the middle, all the gum trees along the fence line, on the inside of the park, inside perimeter of the fence line. So that is going to actually have a big visual impact of it, and what it would be replaced with is concreting, maybe painted green, maybe not, and cricket nets. And so I guess what I would say is, first of all, there could be consideration of different locations for the cricket nets. And secondly, if it's decided to put them where proposed, I believe that they should be removed. There's no additional cost to have a design that can be removed in the off-season. I will say, having lived there for 10 years, I've noticed that the cricket nets are not used for about 8 months of the year. So they begin to be used around now. So a few people went and spent half hour at the cricket nets this Sunday. That was the first time they've been used in months. And then sometime after the new year, after the cricket season is over, again, they are not used. In fact, you can see in the pictures that I've left there, they're not really, the shade nettings are just dragged there. There's lots of grass that's not been mowed or looked after and manicured. I'm sure that our new designs, probably the new proposed design, might have improvements on how it would look in the off-season, but we would like to have it removed so it's not an unsightly view. And we'd also say, if they're going to be in that location, that some trees be added. I think, Mayor, you suggested perhaps trees could be added on the outside perimeter of the fence, along Radford Road on there, just to restore some of the greenscaped aesthetic and fill in the hole that this is going to make in that side of the park. I want to thank you all for letting me present and talk to you today. Been disappointed that we were told that we don't get consulted about this and that the sporting club gets to make this decision unilaterally. They didn't come consult us. They didn't come look at what it was going to be like or ask us what our opinion was until we raised some concerns. We are ratepayers too. We will have to look at whatever is left there 365 days a year. And I think if you look at the picture on the back where the big circle, that's a big gap of trees that's going to go. Happy to take any questions, and thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thank you for your presentation. Members, if there's specific questions, if not, we can have the debate after we've heard from the other. Yeah, there's a question. Yes, Councillor Hearn.
Thank you, Mayor. Do you have a preferred site? You mentioned the tennis courts down in that area, and I guess that's over near the show hall. But is there a preferred site that you could enlarge upon, please?
I haven't done a professional survey of that, but walking through the park on the weekend, that area adjacent and next to, I guess is that on the north side of the tennis courts, looked pretty flat, looked like there will be minimum trees that would need to be removed, and is adjacent to areas that are already hardscaped and surrounded by fences. So for me, that, you know, there's lots of personal opinions about what could be the preferred site, but for me that looked like a really good site.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thanks for your presentation. We'll wait for the other presentations and then we'll have an opportunity to talk about the proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marilyn. Councillors.
Councillors, we'll continue on with the agenda and we'll go to page 252. That's the Town of Gaula Boundary Reform Consultation, page 252.
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved Councillor De Vries and seconded Councillor Johnston. Do you wish to go CEO first?
So I can just clarify, I've identified the geographic separation obviously between ourselves and the Town of Gaula being South Para, but in that it should be the South and North Para, so any submission will include the South and the North Para.
Thank you. Councillor De Vries.
No, just to compliment the CEO on putting together a very good proposal. Yeah, I think this is measured. It's a good response, and I think it accurately reflects the council's views. So well done.
Councillor Johnston.
I'll just echo that and also point out there's a very measured response in that table. I think it's sticking to the process.
Any questions? All those in favour? Carried. Next item's on page 259, the annual closure of Council Office, Libraries, Barossa Visitor Centre, Council depots over the Christmas and New Year period, page 259.
I'll move that, Mayor.
Moved Councillor Haybeck and seconded Councillor Wee Smith. Wish to speak to the motion?
No, it's all great.
Any questions? Councillor Johnston.
Just a quick question. Will there be any impact if we have any issues with the virus? Will the business continuity plan in line with this? Will we be able to maintain some? You know, it'd be difficult over Christmas. So I'm just curious to know whether we've given that some thought.
Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I guess it's easy to describe that as if any emergency happens during that period, the executive, the right team will be pulled back in and we'll deal with it, as we have done with fire before.
Any further questions? All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Members, we have one more deputation. Mr. Jason Plus and Mr. Graham Stratton on the Angus Recreational Park upgrade. Come forward.
Clean so much in my life.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks, Mr. Stratton. I'll give you the 1 minute warning when you get close to it, so thank you.
Good morning, councillors and other guests. My name's Graham Strathern. I'm here representing the Angus Cricket Club. This is my 40th year actively involved in the Angus Cricket Club. I've been on the park committee for about the same time. I'm also a member of the Angus Recreation Park Big Project Working Group, headed up by the outstanding work of Joe Thomas. Given my history, I believe I have a reasonably intimate knowledge of the park. I no longer play cricket, but I'm on the committee and also the curator of our turf wicket. After this meeting, I'll be going up there and starting work on scarifying the deck. We've got our first game in 4 weeks' time. I spend my Saturday afternoons as a member of the local association umpiring panel. That's how I enjoy my days, watching playing cricket, being involved. The practice nets have been on Radford Road for at least 60 years, apart from a 5 or 6 year period when they were on the northeast corner of the oval. This proved not to be a good move, as they were continually damaged. We were continually damaging the oval surface, and the nets were an eyesore, dominating the whole park. 15 years ago, we moved back the oval perimeter on Radford Road to increase the practice pitches from 2 to 3. The Angus Cricket Club is the most successful club in the association, playing in 10 of the last 20 A1 grand finals, including 6 of the last A1 grand finals, winning 5. Our A2s missed out on last year's, but come off winning 3 in a row. Such is our success. We are the only club in the association fielding 4 senior sides, along with 15s, 2 under 13s, 2 under 11s, and a squad of junior players. During the implementation of the second oval, we had to find a new location for our cricket practice nets. We welcomed an increase of practice pitches from 3 to 4. Our preferred location on Radford Road fulfills the major prerequisites of flat ground and access to afternoon sunlight. With the removal of trees, this will make the site ideal from a cricket perspective. Very little earthworks we require on this location. The surrounding trees, been sliding through there, create shadows, and this interferes with batsmen's vision and can be dangerous, particularly when the quicks are on. Dropping limbs can cause damage to the nets, and pine cones, deals and leaf drop cause constant maintenance. Set these pictures through to Barossa so that they better explain with the visual. Those 4 trees you can see there, our preference is to remove those. It wasn't originally, but our preference is. Again, I refer back to shadows on cricket pitches. Not a good move. We've scrolled into the next couple of things. That is one of the carob trees of 3 in a row that got a little orange X on it, meaning it's destined for destruction. That tree there is pretty much 20 metres off the boundary fence and will impact, again causing shade onto our practice nets. If I can just read a comment from a tree audit we had made back in 2003 in reference to these trees. Again, this audit actually specified, went through the park with a brief of having a look at 43 of the largest trees, most significant trees in the park, and identifying those and giving any comments regarding their health. A considerable number of trees on the site are a mature to over-mature. Many have poor form and decay and pose a risk to public and property. A number of these trees will have to be removed, replaced over the next decade. Preservation of a few individual specimens may be possible if desired, however, the costs associated with managing risk to the standard required may be prohibitive. That tree there, I'll just read my notes again, is tree number 41 on the list. And that's a Pinus halepensis, average tree health, 31 to 100 years old, leaning tree including bark crotches and structurally unsound. Basic maintenance required is formative pruning. Specific maintenance required, reducing co-dominance by 60%. And the priority was high back in 2003. Just roll on to another. Next one, please. Back to the start. Next one. That one there, yes. That one there's again Pinus halepensis. Again, 31 to 100 years old. Tree health good. Suitability for site. A medium risk environment was and is structurally unsound. Specific maintenance requirements. Plan to replace in 5 to 10 years time. Priority medium. With the cricket nets in that location to its left, now becomes a high risk environment.
That's from 03, that report.
That's from 03. Yeah. Again, a lot of these things haven't been actioned because, again, they've been in out of the way areas. Again, like I say, that's our preferred site. With the trees being removed, it's a nice open expanse, plenty of sunlight, afternoon cricket practice when it takes place. That's about all I've got. If anyone's got any questions, happy to take.
Thank you, Mr. Stratton. Any specific questions? Councillor Angus.
Thank you, Mayor. We've heard comments that the cricket club is not prepared to, if removable nets were installed, that the cricket club is not prepared to remove them in the off-season. Is this the case?
That is not the case. It's our preferred to leave them where they are. But if they need to be removed, we could remove them.
Thank you.
It's going to be a pain, but anyway, that's the way it goes.
Thank you, members. Any further? Councillor De Vries.
Thanks, Your Worship. So there was talk hinted that maybe trees could be planted outside of the excuse me, of the park to act as a screening barrier. But from what you're saying, that isn't possible because that would then create shade issues. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the neighbours will be required to look at it. That is
yep.
Absolute. Okay.
Again, I might just say that those nets there, you can actually see through them. So it's not an obstruction view. It's going to be in their sight. Those nets there are 4 metres high. The new proposed plan is 3.6 metres, and given the location of the ground and the verge where the Bradford Road is, it's probably a 2 metre drop. So pretty much, if we can just roll to those little 4 trees. Yeah, that's the plan. So there's a cyclone fence on that road, and where that first gum tree is, I would suspect that the cricket nets would be perhaps half a metre higher than the cyclone fence at that point.
No, the question was though, a possible solution has been suggested that they could be screened, but you're saying because of the issue of shadowing, that isn't a solution?
That's not a solution.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, when I made that suggestion, that was pointed out to me on site too. It was because I was just thinking, what landscaping could we do there, and the trees at the height will cause those shadows.
No, I'm not judging. I'm just want to understand.
Okay, just one. Get Councillor Hearn.
Graham, you mentioned the height of the nets there.
Yep.
That fence outside would already be a couple of metres high.
Yes.
So you're saying you're digging into the bank where that first tree is, and then it'll be levelling off?
No, our proposal is to probably be 2 metres inside that first tree. Our cricket net's going to be 12 metres wide, and again, at that point there, the height of the nets will be pretty much the height of the cyclone fence on the boundary line. Again, if I were I only just walked in on Kim's presentation. Again, with that circle, not all those trees are going to be removed. It's only the 2 pine trees. There are other trees back towards the oval that will still remain. And also the suggestion of putting cricket nets down by the tennis courts, we're going to be in exactly the same situation with large trees being removed.
Councillor True.
That was just my question as well. I mean, any alternative sites at all that you've explored?
Again, I suggest my intimate knowledge of the park, the site we've chosen is probably the most preferred site, with less less tree removal, less soil, less earthwork, you name it.
Thank you, Mr. Strathern. Thanks for your presentation. Members, we have a suggested recommendation for you to consider.
Mover.
Moved, Councillor Johnston. Seconded, Councillor Angus. Do you wish to speak to it?
No, I think I think we've heard enough from everyone. I guess I'm going to trust that we're going to make some good, a good compromise with the removal of nature of the nets. My recollection of how this works is they're actually better off not out in the winter unused. You're better off to pull them down anyway, so it's probably a good thing. The longevity of them will be increased.
Councillor Angus?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Wee Smith, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just had a quick question for Ms. Thomas. We've heard a few different figures bandied around in terms of the number of trees that need to be removed. Have you got a more accurate figure you can give us?
Through you, Mayor, no I don't, because we had intended to do the detailed setting out of the cricket nets by now, but we've held off with that. I've sought to reassure in the discussions that we've had that we will minimise absolutely the number of trees that we have to pull down. In addition to the 2003 report, as part of the master planning, we also got an updated tree report done, which reinforces that some of those trees need to come out in any event. But the intent has always been to try and minimise the number of trees. As elected members will be aware, when we did the master plan, there's a significant number of trees that will need to come out in relation to the second oval. And so we are absolutely trying to not take out trees when we don't need to. But I don't have the exact number because I haven't been able to do the setting out. I didn't feel it was appropriate for us to be measuring out when we still hadn't had the deputations come to you.
Any further questions? Well, Councillor Louise-Smith?
Not a question, just to speak to the motion. I appreciate all of the representations we've had this morning. It's been really good. It's given us an outline on how everybody feels about this situation. I think what we all need to do is to keep in mind that the rec park is a public space and we need to be sensitive to the needs and wants of all users. But I'm really impressed with the solution that's been put forward with these retractable nets and the posts that can be removed, and I think we've found a really good compromise there. So I'd like to thank Ms Thomas for the work she's put into this.
Councillor Johnston, you want to close the debate? No. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you, and thank you for those who attended and the deputations that you presented. Thank you. Councillors, we'll move on to the agenda of page 271. This is the Barossa Council Quarterly 4 report. This is the Performance and Activity report. Page 271.
Just a big one.
Where are we up to?
Page 264. Electoral boundaries.
Trying to avoid it.
Okay.
264.
Sorry. Yes, I put a line through the wrong one. Let's go back to that one. 264.
Move the recommendation.
Moved Councillor Louise-Smith, seconded Councillor Miller. You wish to speak to the motion?
I think I did quite a bit of speaking to this at the workshop we had on it. I think it's really important that Council is pursuing this and providing a submission. The changes that have been proposed by the EDBC are quite significant and have quite drastic ramifications for this region should they go forward. It's looking to split our community up into 3 different electorates, which we already know how difficult it can be for this region to work across 2 different local government areas. I think if you extend that to 3 state government areas and 3 different members of parliament that we need to work with, that can make things quite difficult. So I'd like to thank the CEO for the work he's put into this submission and endorse the recommendation.
Any questions? All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Now I think we're on 271. 271, the Performance Activity Report.
Move the recommendation.
Moved Councillor Boothby.
Second.
Seconded Councillor De Vries. You wish to speak to the motion, Councillor De Vries?
Other than to say another great report. Well done to those who put it together.
Yes, very detailed report, and you know some things that leap out is customer request resolution rate, and there's a few other things with organic waste and all those other things. So we're all seem to be moving in the right direction. Councillor Louise-Smith.
I have got a couple of questions.
Thank you.
First up though, I just wanted to note on page 280 the uptake of digital resource use in Q4, which is not surprising given what's happened this year, but I thought that was quite significant and it'll be interesting to see if that continues going forward. The figures for Q4 were nearly 3 times that of Q3, so that's worth noting. A couple of questions I have on page 283 in regards to infrastructure. I note that there's been significant increases in the request for grading, which is also reflective of the feedback that I've been getting across the past few months. So I'm just wondering what the plans are there to increase and improve our unsealed road maintenance, and also what sort of training do our grader drivers receive to ensure that we don't need to be heading out to maintain these roads any more than we need to, because obviously we have quite a significant unsealed road network, so if we do it properly the first time, we don't need to head back too soon.
Mr. Elding.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I've asked the officers to have a look at their grading practices. Councillor Barrett has raised some similar questions you know, having the benefit of seeing how Adelaide Hills treat some of their roads. So look, I'll bring something back to the chamber, maybe a workshop with further information. It is a challenge, particularly, you know, July was very dry, and when we don't have the moisture in the roads, it's very challenging to grade the roads. Some councils don't do any grading in the dry months, which means that when it is wet, we work weekends and overtime to try and catch up so that the levels of service, so those roads that are notionally nominated for, say, 3 grades a year, are getting that service that is already documented.
I do look forward to that coming to a workshop, because I think, yeah, there's a bit of work to be done in that area. The other question I had was pretty straightforward on page 298, the customer request resolution. The completed requests for the June quarter were missing on the graph. Is that an oversight or?
Page again? 298.
298.
We'll take that one on notice. Thank you.
I didn't pick that up. I can see where the line finishes.
Yeah.
Yes. I imagine that's a cut and paste issue. But yeah, I'll get it rectified and put it in the notes.
Any further questions? Councillor Troop?
Sorry, just to, I'm just curious really, the cemetery management and the questions seem to be rising, like in general. I'm just wondering what the nature of those questions are, and do we need to look at that as well from a chamber's point of view?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're developing a policy that will come to council in terms of, and that will have some comments around cemetery maintenance. Some of the requests we have are, there might be a preference for grass, for example, at area, which is a different service level than what's there at the moment. We are revising some of our practices, and again, that'll come, I can provide further detail when that comes in that policy that we're developing.
I know Councillor Schilling and I met and looked at a cemetery, and when I raised it with Mr Elding, his team is already onto it with a policy coming to us to consider. Any further questions? Councillor Barrett?
Yeah, this is from page 292. As I went through the Visitor Information Centre, I looked at the chart, and it's just a steady downhill. Now, I know COVID has had a tremendous impact upon the bookings, but what I see, we've basically gone from 800 down to 700, down to 610, down to 540, now down to roughly, I don't know, looks like about 270,000. Just wondering, is there anything we can do to assist in that area? I started to think of the impact that social media's had, and Airbnbs. Everything used to be done through a visitor information centre, but it just seems a tremendous drop-off from 2016 at over $800,000 worth of bookings down to about 270 5 years down the track. That's a huge drop-off, especially with the money we've spent on that centre.
CEO?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll start with the macro. You've got to remember 2016 is coming off the biggest product launch of the Be Consumed. So that is coming off a massive high. There are other structural issues in terms of how tourism now operates as well, which you've talked about. And yes, we would love to get back to that figure, but we do have to remember that quiz in the time of the Be Consumed, where we had a stress. That's the macro. I'll let Thomas talk about the other bits.
Through you, Mayor, yes, it's something that we're constantly talking through in terms of what we see in the trends. You're right, most people, a significant amount of people are booking online, and they don't need to book through our services. That's been a trend throughout the industry, and fundamentally, what we find is people are booking online, but then when they actually get here, they still want to come in and have some face-to-face interaction at the physically at the visitor centre. So that's one of the trends that we see. We also see that when they do that, the amount of investment we've put into the local merchandising and product, we've increased our turnover in relation to our merchandise significantly. But absolutely, we have been impacted fundamentally by COVID. There is no two ways about that. We're obviously starting to see some interstate travellers coming back in, particularly from Queensland, and it's something we're just going to have to keep talking and reviewing on an ongoing basis to see what opportunities we can look at. We're looking at packages online. Also, people tend to want still experiences that they come in to us to book. So in some ways, there's been a shift more from accommodation booking to more experiences, tours, merchandising, information when people get here. We still get fantastic feedback that we provide that individual level of service when people come in to see us. And I think that is still absolutely a fundamental service that facility is providing, the welcome and the local intelligence and knowledge that we have of the region. So the data is the quantitative component of that, but there is a huge amount of storytelling and quality of support that we provide in addition to that, which you can't really see in that revenue figure.
Councillor Hearn.
Yeah, thanks, man. Just a quick one. Councillor Havey pointed out a report in the Advertiser, I'm not sure, about 12 months ago about visitors to the Barossa. Our visitors to the Barossa increased, say about 30-odd%, whereas in the McLaren Vale area it was over 200% from 2016 to 2019. Now that was a report done from somewhere, but I think Martin's got his finger on the button, but there is an imbalance here somewhere.
Yeah, it just depends on what figures you look at. You see.
Quite honestly, that's actually a simple mathematical issue. They're coming off a much, much lower base of 300,000. And they are up 200%, it goes to 360. We went from 800 to 890. So it's a simple mathematical issue that some people in the Advertiser don't see. Perhaps delve in enough. That doesn't, in my view, and through the RDA board and my conversations with obviously Joe and Joe, the real trick for us in the future is to convert day tripping to staying. Yeah. So yes, McLaren Vale came off and had a great increase, but that is coming off a much lower base. Yeah, that's about how I'd explain that one. Okay. That data's probably 12 months old. I can't remember.
Yeah.
When you talk about visitor centres, I did see some visitors down at the Lindop Bakery the other day. I'm chatting to them and they were quite disappointed. They lobbed at Gaula and wanted some visitor information, and the visitor information centre in Gaula was shut. I think it only opens a few times a week, and so I promptly steered them up to the Tananda one. Any further questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried.
So much for the beach way.
Page 309, the monthly finance report. Any specific questions? Councillor Johnston,
I'll move the recommendation.
Moved Councillor Johnston and seconded Councillor Boothby. No questions? All those in favour? Carried. Page 312, the 2019-20 draft annual financial statements, council certificate. 312.
The recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved Councillor De Vries, seconded Councillor Wee-Smith. Any questions, comments you wish to? All those in favour? Carried. Next item, members, is on page 314. This is the big project, the consideration of the draft aquatic strategy. Members, I think we've been kicking this one around for a while. CEO?
7216, Mr. Mayor, the addendum report.
Oh, gee, I had that marked too. 7216, sorry about that. The addendum report. This is to do with the election for the provision of representative members of the Board of Trustees for the Local Government Financial Authority, South Australia. We need 2 names, and if I can give a couple suggestions, unless anyone's got any other suggestions, I'm happy to give you some suggestions. Anyone got anything from the floor you prefer?
Go for it.
After much consultation, Karen Hockley from the City of Mitcham and Annette Martin from the Manager of Financial Services, Charles Sturt. Councillor Wee-Smith.
Can you provide some reasoning for your nominations, please?
I spoke to the CEO and he knew them and recommended them to us, but he can provide further if you wish, because I didn't know. Yeah, carry on.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I know the majority in that group, and all would have no problems, I think. I know Karen, not personally, but I know of her through my accounting system. I think she's well suited to a business financial sense, and I know Annette very well. She's extremely experienced, a very pragmatic individual, and I think she's served that board very well and should continue. There are 4 or 5 others in there that would be fine as well, but he asked for my opinion. That's the opinion I gave him.
I'm happy to move that way.
Moved Councillor Boothby, seconded Councillor Miller. All those in favour? Carried. Now I'll move to the big project. This is on page 314. I'll just get to that page. And members, we have that matter lying on the table from a previous council meeting. Moved by Councillor Miller that be lifted from the table and seconded by Councillor Wee-Smith. Now, Councillor De Vries, you had that live motion on the table and you asked me if you wish to speak to it.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think everybody spoke to that, so it's back to me to close the debate.
Right, that's it, yes.
As a matter of formality. Look, I'm going to actually do something unusual and actually say that I would like everybody to vote down this motion, because clearly this has been dragging on for a very long time. I'm mindful of Councillor Boothby has circulated a alternative resolution which I think is actually a way to break the inertia and move forward on this. I'm concerned that we are going to allow events to get ahead of us on this one. I'm concerned about the state of the pool, and I do think that we need to act. And I think Councillor Boothby has offered a practical way that we can progress. So with that in mind, what I will be doing is I'll be voting against my own motion, but I will also be supporting Councillor Boothby, assuming that she in fact moves the motion that she has indicated she will online. Thank you.
I think we've closed the debate.
Close the debate, sorry, Russell.
Yep.
As a seconder of the motion, I agree.
Yep.
May I raise a point of order? Yes. I don't believe you asked for all in favour about lifting off the table. I may have been asleep.
Yeah, no, you're correct. Yes. All those in favour of lifting that off the table. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you.
That's all right. But since I gave a notice of my intention, I won't do.
We don't do it again.
Okay. With that, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? The motion is lost.
No, you got to damn
Against, sorry. It's against, sorry.
You've got to vote for against.
All those against? Carried. We'll get there.
How does that make you feel, Councillor?
Councillor Boothby.
As foreshadowed by Councillor De Vries, I would like to move an alternate motion that was put forward to work together via email. Can you put on the screen?
Yep.
like me to speak to that, or wait to see if there's a seconder?
I'll second.
I'll wait for the motion to go up and then you can talk to it, councillor. Yep. Yep, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor. So I'll see if I can just provide a bit of a summary from where this has come from my point of view. So the last, if you can say, strategic conversation around aquatic facilities for our council was had over 10 years ago when the Rex development was proposed. So obviously the result of that consultation and decision making was to have a significant aquatic facility, indoor facility built as part of the Rex development. This decision was also made to close 2 of the 3 outdoor pools, being the old Tananda pool and the Neri pool. So since that time, the Tananda outdoor pool was closed, and there has been ongoing discussion of this council and the previous council around I guess the timing and trigger points for closing of the Neri pool. It's also been significant volunteer contribution, and I really want to acknowledge the contribution of those passionate people who have really worked hard to represent back what improvements can be made to that pool to try and increase its visitation. And also working, the significant management time that has gone into that consultation and trying to find solutions to keep the pool open as long as possible. With the Williamstown pool, we have most recently had the master planning around the Williamstown QBJP in terms of the potential opportunities for that park and what impacts that may have on the pool. And that work is really still to be explored in terms of what impact that could have on visitation, new revenue streams, potentially reduced cost, and also then ultimately reduced subsidy per visit. We've also had significant research undertaken by the management team towards development of an aquatic strategy. The way I would like to look at that work at the moment is basically to have that sit as a research paper, discussion paper that has really well informed our decision making, and does provide some information about particularly what in Victoria, what research tells us about how governments are planning around community aquatic facilities. And so basically I've made the suggestion that we could look at some low cost in terms of capital and operational cost ways to put a toe in the water on that one in terms of trying to actually provide some additional services. And I think one of the things that the Adventure Playground at Anguston has shown us is that there's a need for family-oriented leisure facilities. That's been hugely successful, and it could be, for example, that at Tolly Reserve we could have a look at a zero depth water play area that provides some of that emerging facilities, but without basically committing us to a significant facility that the community hasn't come to us to say that they want. So I guess for me that's one of the overriding things with this, is that in terms of the emerging space, the community hasn't said to us we need a water park, we need to have these facilities. So I think we can have introduce a start of conversation around that. But I guess to summarise, the most important part of this piece and the hard decision for us today is around Neri Pool. And actually deciding to close that facility at the end of this season, noting the passion that has been displayed by a group of people for that pool, but also the fact that $1.6 million to make that compliant without improving service levels is a significant investment that I don't think we can continue on behalf of our ratepayers to invest. So I think that decision needs to be made today. We can find out some more about the Williamstown pool and terms of opportunities for that and explore the options around emerging, and I would urge Council to support that as a way forward.
Councillor De Vries.
Thanks, Your Worship. I would echo and endorse pretty much everything that Councillor Boothby has said. As I've spoken about before, the concern that I have is that the Neri pool is reaching the end of its life. The Barossa councillors, Councillor Boothby mentioned, made the decision after the consultation period with the Rex that we would keep the Nuri pool open because it was providing a service that was not actually being provided elsewhere, which was a 50-metre outdoor pool. It was still useful to maintain it. We were also recognised the fact that we had lost the outdoor pool sort of splash park, if you like, jump and run and squeal facility that we had in Tananda, and that hopefully therefore Nuripta's pool would maintain some of that level for the kids floating around. So there were reasons why we did that, but there was always an understanding that at some point we couldn't just allow it to deteriorate indefinitely, that there was a point where we would have to make a decision. I believe, to be honest, that point really came about a year ago, but we have allowed this to drag on. But I recognise the whole COVID thing. There's a lot of reasons why things have happened, but we really do need to make this decision because every year that we allow this to go by, we're losing literally hundreds of thousands of dollars that could be better directed towards an asset that would be of benefit for the community. Now, from my own research, and it's partially anecdotal, but even during the last council election, there was actually significant voice for the idea of a splash park coming from the community, and there was definitely a lot on social media. So yes, you're right, nobody's actually come to us and said we want this, but there's certainly been a lot of, and I see a lot of nodding heads, so I wasn't alone in picking up this. I've witnessed the splash park in the Tananda caravan park. It could be something along those lines, could be built incredibly cheaply and could be allowed, and it's sort of in a modular form that can be added to and grown over time. If this proves to be popular, I see no reason why we couldn't then add additional types of aquatic structures, and I've spoken to Councillor Angus about this, and he thought that if we do this, we should definitely look at the capacity to add additional aquatic facilities in that region if there is a demand, so we don't lock ourselves into it. The question really is, regrettable as this is, that the Nuri pool is dead. It is, whether it's this year or next year, at some point we're going to have to pull the pin. The question is, do we keep throwing good money after bad? I feel that is now not the purpose. We should really be looking at going forward. The area is a floodplain, that's another issue, so just fixing it up, even that in itself has problems. So we need to look at alternatives, I believe, and I guess, as I've been saying for some time, my feeling was the two choices were we either close it and then do nothing, or we close it and then replace it with something else, either the same thing again but elsewhere, or we replace it with a splash park. I believe that the splash park is definitely something that the community would want. As Councillor Boothby's also intonated, the adventure park in Angus has been a huge success, and I believe this in Nuri would likewise be. It's the obvious location to have it next to the skate park and so forth. So for all of those reasons, I believe this makes a lot of sense. I don't believe that automatically shuts off the idea of having other types of aquatic facilities in that area as well. But I would rather do something than do nothing. And the idea of actually closing off the pool and then saying to people in Nuri, sorry, that's it, no more aquatic in this district, I think would be a real shame. I do sympathise with the lap swimmers. That being said, one of the main reasons why we built the Rex in the first place was to provide lap swimming for people. I know that indoor 25-metre lap swimming is not the same as outdoor 50-metre lap swimming, but at the time that was the feedback that we came from the consultation, and from the swimmers at the time they said they want the Rex for that reason. So we're not able to provide everything to everybody, I recognise that. I think this is the best fit. I'm sorry it's not going to please everybody, but if we just do nothing, eventually the pool's going to be shut anyway. That is the reality. We cannot just keep that pool where it is forever. It's just going to run out.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Johnston.
Just a question, recognising that this is a warm oil pool, do we need to make some provision in this motion for retaining some aspect of the warm oil bridge? I think there's a permanent wall for a floodway there that could go on there or something, just a thought.
Yeah.
Yes.
Councillor Wee-Smith and then... No. Councillor Wee-Smith.
I'd like to propose an amendment to part 2, which I've just sent through to the CEO. Would you like me to read that out?
Please, yes.
Yeah. Do you want my reasoning first? Am I allowed to do that, or do I have to say the amendment first?
You have to do the amendment.
Yeah,
Give it a
right.
second.
So the amendment is recognising that the New York War Memorial swimming pool as an asset is nearing the end of its useful life and is located in a flood zone. Commence community consultation to guide future aquatic decisions with the view to permanently closing the pool and the rest of the zone.
We'll just wait for the amendment up and we'll see if we get a second.
Unless the mover and the second and Mr. Mayor have to include.
So what is the addition?
Community consultation to guide future decisions.
Sometimes running up there.
Yeah, the mover and seconder, your
What are
thoughts?
we saying there? We can go
I'd
back
like to read what the
what are we trying to achieve?
Well, that's a proposed amendment. I just want to clarify with the mover and the seconder, or they want to include. No, okay.
I'd like to hear the justification first.
Can we actually, where is the, that looks like the same.
No,
Community consultation.
it's radically different.
Sorry.
No, I don't think we.
What I'll do is ask for a seconder.
Right, so what are we doing?
How's this work?
I don't understand how it's
Oh,
going to
So
work.
we ask community
Just
if we
hang on a
can
sec,
then go
hang on.
forward.
Just grab the whole.
What information would we provide them with?
So, yeah, without taking over the process.
So the first one is recognising the New York Memorial Pool as an asset, as at its end of its useful life and its location in the floodplain and we permanently close the pool at the end of the 2021 season and decommission the pool with the appropriate budget allocation. Part B converts the open space area to public park. The amended suggestion from Councillor Louise is recognising the New York swimming pool as an asset is nearing the end of its useful life and is located in the flood. Commence community consultation to guide future aquatic decisions with the view of permanently closing the pool at the end of 2021 season and decommission the pool appropriate and convert the open space area to public park which recognises the war memorial history. So it's sort of similar but slightly different.
I'll second.
I don't know that that's actually that's not an amendment, that's actually a new motion.
Yeah,
that has a completely, so I don't know that that's actually.
Yeah, I just thought I'd ask, but if I get a seconder, then you can talk to the motion. So
No, but I'm not even sure if you can do that. I think an amendment can't undermine the purpose of the original motion, which is what it's doing.
Well, it is.
It's a new motion.
It is.
It's a new motion.
It's a new motion.
Yes.
No, that's your choice.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think.
Well,
You've got a mover and a seconder, you need to go through the amendment process.
Yeah.
If you're ruling it in, Carla needs to step.
Yeah. So I need to have a seconder.
I'll second that.
Second by Councillor Troop. Now, Councillor Wees, you can speak to it.
And essentially, if this motion is then defeated, we can revert to Councillor Boothby's original motion. The reason I put forward this amendment is I have significant concerns around how much we've actually spoken to the community about this. Now, I understand this is a long-standing issue. It has been going on for a long, long time, and we need to make a decision regarding the future of the pool. I have no issues with that. We've had a lot of discussions around what we're going to do, what we're not going to do going forward, but at the end of the day, we really don't know what the community wants. We don't know if they want an outdoor, if they still want an outdoor pool, if that's a possibility, if they want a splash park, if they want something completely different. So the aquatic strategy, the draft aquatic strategy has presented options, issues and options, but it hasn't actually provided any guidance. And I think that's a reflection on the fact that we haven't done any consultation for, I think it's about 5 years since the last one was done. Things change quite rapidly, especially in this modern world. So I think it would be remiss of us to make a decision without actually clarifying we are considering other options going forward. I'm happy to workshop that recommendation there further with everybody, but I do really feel that we need to speak to the community and make sure they understand what we're doing, why we're doing this. And we've had numerous discussions about this at workshops, at meetings, and I don't feel that we've done that yet. This is something we've discussed in this chamber, but we haven't actually gone to the community with. And of course, Part B, 2B there, I've added the part recognising the war memorial history. I think that's a great idea to convert the space to a public park going forward. And as Councillor Johnston already raised, you know, there is an emotional connection to that space because of its history. So I think that's really important, whatever we do.
Councillor True?
I'd like to echo that. I think that if we do these two things side by side, because I think that would journey the actual general population through this process with us, so that we're not making a executive decision saying that's it, it's finishing. I mean, we can actually have that consultation process saying with the aim of ending it in 21, with that aim. I don't have a problem with that at all, because I think it's got to have an end date. And then, but as you're journeying through consultation with the public, I think that's going to give them a voice to speak into the next season. So I think it's actually facilitating a more democratic voice. We're listening to you, we've got these problems, you want this, so let's journey this together. That's what I feel that this motion is addressing, that we're doing it together with the aim of closing it. And I think that is right. I think Leonie's right, that it has to have an end date, definitely. So.
Councillor Angus and then Councillor Haley.
Thank you. I support this amendment. I don't see that it's at odds with the original motion. We are setting a definite end date for this asset, but we are bringing the community along for the ride to see what will eventuate out of this. So I will support the amendment and urge others to do the same.
Councillor Haley.
I will support the amended motion in line with the fact that we have not consulted. We need, as a council, to consult with the people we represent. We may have consulted 4 or 5 years ago, but at that stage, splash pools weren't around, they weren't considered, and so forth. So we know that the pool is at its end. The day will come when it has to close. And this doesn't alter the fact that at the end of this season, the pool will close. But we will consult in the meantime. And I think that's very, very important for us as a council. Thank you.
Councillor Boothby, and then Councillor Johnston, and then Councillor Shelley. I got it. Oh, got it too.
So I did consider community consultation when I wrote the original amended resolution. I guess for me, if we consult with the community, we have to do that respectfully, we have to do that with information, and we have to also be recognising when we are required to just make a decision. This is an asset management decision. We have an asset that's at the end of its useful life. We know that at some point in the very, very near future, $1.6 million is going to be needed to be spent on that asset just to make it have existing service levels and continue. I think there's a consensus in the room that we have to close this pool. So if we are consulting with the community, are we consulting on that decision? Or are we delivering a decision and then saying, to make that a bit more palatable to you, we want to have a conversation about either potentially replacing that pool, maybe having a water park. We have no information to give you. We can't tell you what we're consulting on. We can't tell you what it might cost. We can't tell you what we won't be able to do if we do that. And we can't tell you when it might happen. So if we go to the community and say, A, do you want to close the pool? If they say, no, actually we don't, do we just keep it open forever? So if they say we want to replace it with a 25-metre outdoor pool, are we going to actually do that? Given that we've already got a 30-metre outdoor pool that granted is 20 to 30 minutes drive away, but we do have one already. We have no idea whether the rest of the people that live in the northern part of our electorate will actually travel to Williamstown and give Williamstown a boost in terms of having, within our own backyard, tourism and visitation. That would be an amazing thing. We have no idea about any of that. So if we do this, my concern is that we will delay that decision again for another season, and the pool management team, we're looking at how to put more band-aids on this asset to keep it going another season. And we'll just keep this going and keep this going. I think we have to just make a hard decision. So what are you consulting on then? That would like my question back to you. What are we consulting on?
No, it's a question for clarification.
It's a question for clarification.
I would like to know what we...
Councillor Johnston, you have a question.
Yes, so through the chair, I'm finding it difficult to consider supporting the amendment that Councillor West-Smith has proposed, because subtly it alters the wording from this asset has reached the end of its useful life to is reaching the end of its useful life. So it's is nearing the end of its useful life. They're two quite different things. And I've been told that the pool is 75 years old, at least, and that typical below ground concrete pools last about 50 years. So it is clearly at the end of its useful life. So that makes it difficult when you go to the next part of the proposed amendment. You then join consultation up with a view to permanently closing the pool, and you end up giving the community the hope that the thing might remain open. I echo Councillor Boothby's, Mayor Boothby's comment that we have to make a decision, as unpalatable as it might be, that we need to close the pool. We can consult on what its replacement might be down the track, and I'm sure we will, because that's contained in the other part to the original motion. So I'm finding it difficult to support the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Schilling, Councillor Havik, you've already spoken, so I can't let you speak again. So.
Yes, just following on from the idea of a consultation, I believe we haven't given people any options, and I'm not for closing the pool without going to the public with options, what we propose to do instead. Look, if we go to a consultation and the public say, no, we don't want an outdoor aquatic facility, then so be it. That's the way we go. But we haven't even asked that question. We need to look at the future of a outdoor aquatic facility. Is it something that we need for the future? We're looking at the next 30 years. So what does our community require? A splash park supports one very small part of the population. I think we need to consider that our population is more an older ageing population. So by providing a splash park, it doesn't give options for all ages. It gives nothing for our youth to participate in. So I would like to see us consult on an all-age outdoor aquatic facility that has options for people to consider, and I'd also like it to be as part of a master plan for Tolly Reserve. So it could be, I've talked about this before, it could be a staged options, but again, I agree with you, Councillor Boothby, on we haven't got any costs towards some sort of new plan or new aquatic facility. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Councillor De Vries.
Thank you, Your Worship. A few things. First off, if that's what we want to do, that was all encompassed in the motion that you guys defeated about 10 minutes ago. Yes, it was about 10 minutes ago, and it was actually moved about a year ago. At that time, we had the consultation document prepared that had been worked up over a very long period of time, and we were going to go out to the community to seek, to consult, to actually say, we want to shut the pool down and we want to then look at all other options. And from what I'm hearing right now, that's precisely where we're right back to, and we're going to spin our wheels on this forever. Now, this is why I supported Councillor Boothby's motion, because she's actually willing to make a decision and to move forward with this, and I really do believe that this is the problem. The staff are absolutely confused about what we were trying to do with this. I don't know how Joe has managed so far with this. It is absolutely crazy. If we as a group, as Councillor Boothby has said, believe that from an asset management point of view we need to shut down the pool, there is nothing to consult about. We will be making that decision. As Councillor Boothby said, what do? We go out and we ask permission to do our job. We did that. It was called the election. That's why we're all elected, to make decisions. So this is the concern that I have. We are not actually making a decision. Now this is actually saying that we're going to the community, and what this motion is saying first up is that we have made a decision that this is what we're going to do. We will communicate that with the community, and that will be a form of consultation. We are then going to look over the next 2 years, if I could just see the rest of the motion there. We are then going to look over the next 2 years at the Williamstown pool and explore the potential opportunities there. Consultation will be part of that process. It just naturally will be. Likewise, noting the research provided by the draft aquatic strategy, we're going to look at emerging aquatic facilities, and consultation will be part of that too. Consultation is inherent in how we're going forward. The question is, are we going to make a decision to close the pool or not? Because I'm not exactly sure what we're planning to consult on. We go out to the community and say what? We say we want to consult with you, we want to let you know that this is what we're proposing to do. But we haven't actually decided yet what that proposal is. So what information are we going to go out to the community with? This doesn't actually say. All we're saying at the moment in this motion is that we're agreeing that we're going to close down the pool, but we're not offering any alternatives. How do we consult with the community on that? There is nothing there that says, oh, and by the way, we will shut the pool down and then we will do this. There's no and then we will do this in this motion. There was a year ago, but everybody voted that down about 20 minutes ago. So I'm completely confused now as to what we're trying to do. Why are we so frightened about making a decision? When I stood for the last election, I said I would use science and I would use data and I would use logic.
No, he's got a little bit longer, sir. Yep.
Sorry?
Just
David. You're doing his job now, right?
Yeah. No, carry on.
Yeah. Okay. All right, well then I'll stop since Councillor Haybick doesn't want me to continue.
Councillor Harvey, I know you put your hand up to speak again. I've let Councillor Rees speak because he spoke to the previous motion. This is an amendment he's speaking to, and that's why I can't let you speak, because you've already spoke to this amendment, as I understand it. That's great. Councillor Hearn.
Thank you, Mayor. This saga has been going on for the last 10 years. When I was on council previously, at the previous election again for the 4-year term, and for this election. And I've spoken to many people out there, and the Qriket pool is, as we all know, had it. We've talked about replacing filters. If a filter goes, we close the pool. We've actually got to sit here as councillors and make a decision. I agree with Councillor De Vries. We're paid to make some tough decisions. This decision is a tough one, but because of the expense that we could pay, and I think a figure of 1.6 million was done to upgrade the pool, I couldn't, with any conscience, vote to spend that sort of money on this pool, which is 75 to 80 years old. So I agree that we should revert to the original motion, so I'll be voting against this motion, or the amendment, and revert to the original one, make a decision that we're definitely going to close the pool, and then, if we need to, tell the public that we're going to consult, whether it be splash pool, add-ons, etc, etc. But in this day and age, with so many pools being built, and you only have to have a look at what V-Dirt's doing, the yard fills up every time, and all those pools are paid for. so you can have a look as you drive past yourself past on the way to the Rex. We have to make a decision today, and I agree with Councillor Boothby that other things can be done afterwards. But we now today, the time has come for us to make that decision to actually say we're closing the pool at the end of 2020-21, and if the filters muck up, it closes from that date, that we don't go and spend another $100,000 just making, make it work to the end of the season. So I think we're kidding ourselves if we're going to try and think we're going to go out and consult, because it'll be the same few people again. And I'm sick and tired of it over the last 10 years to see that this is what we're doing. I'm here to make a decision, and I'm certainly going to do that today. Thank you.
Any further questions? I might just add that I believe, in my opinion, the amendment does cloud the issue again. I believe the original one from Councillor Boothby is decisive, and I think in our role we've got to make sure that we look at the strategic direction and set those policies, and also take into the fact that we've got to be accountable for many things. Now, I put my asset management's hat on. We've all agreed that the pool its life is over. We've put band-aids on it, we've patched it up. And I think Councillor Boothby's original motion is decisive. I'm conscious of staff and the resources that's needed to keep on going over the same old territory. I sympathise with the discussions around the consultation, but I think we've sort of gone around in circles for a fair while. Councillor, any further question? Otherwise, Councillor Wee-Smith, you can close the debate on the matter, on this matter, the amendment.
We always knew this was going to be an interesting discussion. I will concede that amendment there is probably not providing the clarity it needs to, and I was writing it on the fly. So with the view to, I'm quite happy to change that to permanently closes the pool. That's the intent here, and I understand that is the intent of the majority of members here. As I've said numerous times, my concern here is that we're not bringing the community along on this journey. It's a long-running saga, I acknowledge that, and I'm sure the councillors who have been here for several terms are frustrated with it. I mean, you have had the opportunity to make this decision several times before. We've got a new council here now. We've been discussing this for the last two and a half years already, and we do need to make a decision. So that's not a question. In terms of asset management, I agree with the Mayor. We absolutely need to make the decision to close the pool, but we need to do it the right way. And I don't feel we're doing that. At the moment, we're swinging the axe, we're going, right, that's it. And we're not really giving the community an opportunity to be involved in this. Now, we're not giving them a say on whether or not we're going to close the pool. We're going to close the pool. That's going to happen. We have to do that. The thing is, we need to talk about them, in terms of what we're going to do in the future. And that is what this consultation is about, is to help us guide future aquatic decisions. It's not setting anything in stone. It's not locking us into doing anything whatsoever, but it's having a conversation with the community, which is really important. I've spoken earlier today about our communications and engagement. That is such a key part of what this organisation does and what we as elected members do. And we miss the mark all the time on this. We can talk about the ovals, and we know how that one went. We didn't talk to the community before we decided to make a decision. I don't know what else I can say about it. We're not an autocratic society, and I as an elected member want to be seen as someone who wants to work with the community, not come in, swing the axe, go, right, that's it, we're not going to talk to you about it. This has been going on for too long, we've got to make a call. We are making a call, but we're trying to soften the blow a bit, and I think that's on all of us.
Thank you. I'll put the amendment. Those in favour of the amendment? Those against? The amendment is lost. Call a division. Those who voted for the amendment, please stand. Councillor Haybick. Councillor Angus, Councillor Wee Smith, and Councillor True.
Because he's got to do us.
And those still seating is Councillor Hearn, Councillor Barrett, Councillor Schilling, Councillor Boothby, Councillor Miller, Councillor De Vries, and Councillor Johnston. Miller. Miller. There we go, Chad.
Quiet man down there.
Read me.
Members, we go back to the original motion. It's been, I forget where we're up to. You've spoken to it. Yes, we have. Okay. Any further questions or any further debate? Councillor Wee Smith.
No, she can't speak to it.
Oh, she can't.
I haven't spoken to this motion.
I don't think you've spoken to the amendment, you've spoken to the motion.
Okay.
I actually just went and checked the law. I'll read it for you if you want.
Okay. Those who haven't spoken.
The person who moves and seconds will, in so doing, be taken to have spoken to the substantive to the motion to which the amendment relates.
Okay.
Because I knew that question was coming.
I'm glad you had that finger on the spot. Any further questions? If not, I'll, Councillor Boothby, you wish to close the debate?
I guess I'd like to just finish off by saying that in putting forward this motion, we are not ignoring the community. We are not actively choosing not to consult. We're basically recognising that we have all the information that we need, and we have, a pretty defined set of information to make the decision based on. We actually don't have, many choices with this one. In terms of what we could consult on, which, to Councillor De Vries' point, was the predominant content of the strategy is about what that future might look like, and not to, it could be, for example, in a future conversation, that as a group of councillors we look at the assets that we have, the aquatic assets that remain, which is the Rex and Williamstown, and if it is that the community tell us, either through the community plan process or otherwise, that a water park is what they need, it actually could be one of those two sites that we actually look at. It may not be Newry. So I appreciate that Newry is where the pool has been lost, but we are all one council. And we actually have to look at where our facilities are and where they should best be. And it actually could be that we one day develop Williamstown further to make that subsidy per visit reduce and increase, visitation to that end of the region. And for 1,000 reasons that might exist at the time, it may not be Newry. So I think we would be, recalcitrant to suggest that we are going to absolutely take this one away and replace it with something else. I think this is a decision that we have to make today and move forward and start new conversations from here. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. That closes the debate. All those in favour of the motion? Those against? The motion is carried. Councillors, we'll move to page 514.
Don't need my permission to go this one.
514 is the Barossa Adventure Station update, post-opening, additional works. Councillor Angus.
Mayor, I'd like to not move the recommendation in its current form. I'd like to bring the meeting's attention to the bit on signage on page page 516 at the top.
11.
No, it's not. It's in the middle of the page, 516, item 11.
Item 11, yeah.
Very quick email round last night, instigated by Councillor Schilling to Akbar in Angaston. I'd certainly missed this in reading through. It seemed like the troops would be very uneasy if we were to lose the word Angaston off the side of the slide, but the Barossa Adventure Park signage could be put on the other two sides. So I'm just flagging that that's how the Angaston community sees it. So I don't want to move this motion and have us undo the good work that has already been done. So maybe a comment from
I might clarify that.
the Mayor.
Because I could be the problem here. I think I probably am the problem that's confused the issue a little bit here, and you pointed this out to me and drew my attention to it last night. Obviously, it's important, and when I first went up there not long after the walkover, I did look up and see Angaston hanging up broadly, presenting Angaston, and my question back to the staff was, why have we put Angaston up there when it's the Barossa Adventure Park? And I think Ms Thomas and her team have spelled out, look, at that stage, that was ordered because there was no decision on what we were going to call the park. I know staff had constantly tried to contact Akbar and get some discussion, and we ended up deciding it was going to be the Barossa Adventure Park. So that's, as I understand it, how that's up there. I know the issue associated with, and I wasn't aware that, and I haven't been up there at night to see that that lights up at night. So they're the costs associated with it. Enormous amount of work's been put in by the staff, and has taken and filtered a lot of questions associated with this facility. I suppose I'm very keen to see the name Barossa prominent as far as it being a regional facility. I guess after I realised what had happened, I was probably content to see it go on one of the other panels rather than at Angaston come down. But that's the clarification. I've probably confused the issue a little bit, but I'm very keen to see the word Barossa somewhere up there. But also, it is, let's not lose sight, it is the Angaston railway station, and that's got a heritage aspect to it. But I haven't got a motion. I've got any question?
Yeah, like Councillor Angus, Mayor, I've got reservations with some of the costings in here, and would like to be able to discuss it before we actually agree to some of those costings, if that's possible.
Yep, ask some questions.
Sorry. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
The costings are the costings. If you want a different outcome, we'll take those costings out. So the costings have been costed.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, and I think what I'm saying, Councillor Angus alluded to, there are things like signage, there's other things like car park which is not in there. I don't agree with spending that sort of money, for instance, on lighting the tower up at night when there's no one other than a few people walking around the park at the night time. It's the daytime thing, it's the history of the Angaston railway station, it's all of those things, and there are three things that are not in here, so I'm not sure when I can actually speak to them, but I just think the staff have done a good job. They've gone ahead with some of this stuff, and that's fine, but I would like to sort of not say we've got to debate that motion on those things if that's not necessary.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I mean, that's fine. That's what you want to see in future activities. What I'm saying is the costings are the costings. So there's no use debating costings because that's what they are.
No, I just don't want some of the stuff in there. That's what I'm alluding to.
Then you'll do that as part of the debate. I was just answering your question about costings.
Yep. So, well, I'll move the motion and speak to it later, or someone else can move it.
You want to move the motion?
I'll move the motion.
And I guess what it's talking about in the context is the documentation and some of the things associated with it. Implement suitable signage to be addressed and use the feedback. So there's still some discussion there, as I understand. So that's not absolutely locked in. If I'm incorrect, let me know. but there is a dollar figure there that we're authorising to go to. Councillor De Vries.
Yeah, question if I could, Your Worship. And I think you've just almost hinted on it. Implement suitable signage. Is that wording of itself sufficient to implement something along the lines of what Councillor Angus is talking about? Because I would like to see the word Barossa on the tower, but I don't want to see it at the expense of Angaston. And I believe your solution may be a way to resolve that issue to everybody's satisfaction. Does that require specific additional wording to this motion, or would that be enough as it currently stands? And if it's not, I'll foreshadow I'm happy to make an amendment to adjust it accordingly.
I think it's fairly specific. We want the word, if that's what you want, the word Barossa up on that tower, which isn't there at the moment, we probably need to include that.
Then have there been seconded to the motion?
No, it hasn't. So
once there's a second, I'm foreshadowing, I'll be moving an amendment.
Well, I'm prepared to put it in the original motion and have Barossa up there, but if that suits you, Councillor.
Yeah, if you want to put it in, that's great.
You haven't got a second.
No, I haven't got a second.
Oh, if that is the motion, then I'm happy to second that.
So if we include the words Barossa, suitable signage, do we need?
And not like Barossa Angaston on the same, I mean on different panels, so that
suitable signage actually covers it. But I think Joe had.
Yeah, Joe, can you want to add something?
So all through you, Mr. Mayor, all we simply had in mind was obviously there's 4 sides to this. Mm-hmm. We would put Barossa on 2 of those sides and Angus on the other 2. Perfect. Which sides those end up being can be whatever you wish us to do. Yeah. Just in relation to the Akbar group, it wasn't our suggestion that it be called the Barossa Adventure Station. The process that we went through with that on, as the Mayor alluded to, repeated occasions, including workshops, was for Akbar to come up with a suggested name. In the end, because we had to take this to council because we needed to open it, eventually I went back to them and said, unless you tell us what you would like to call it, we will call it Barossa. We will recommend that it's to council that it's called the Barossa Play Station, which I knew they didn't want, and I hoped that that would then trigger them coming back with something. Eventually it did, and I got Barossa Adventure Station, and that's what it ended up being called. So the inference that we've not consulted or been communal, we have done so much and put so much effort into liaising with the community on this project, and it's a fantastic outcome and everybody has done a great job. But we have gone above and beyond to include the community in this project.
So you just beat me to it.
Thanks for that clarification. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll include the word Barossa.
Yes.
And you're happy to second it?
Yes, I am.
And you've got the explanation from Mr. Thomas. Mm-hmm. Any further questions? Councillor Shilling?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, well, look, I'll let Councillor Hearn speak to his motion first, and then we can have some questions.
Thank you, Mayor. It's good that we've got some consensus in the room. Lots of things have happened up there, and I'm really proud of the way the staff have handled it and the things that have gone on, and we're all seeing that it's really a fabulous investment. What I am sad about is that the park entrance looks a bit like a dog's breakfast. The car park is the same. I've put a CRN in via Matt regarding maintenance of the bank that's eroded, and we've seen in front of us now that that's been done, and I thank Jo for her work in that particular area. With such an investment, I'm just very, very disappointed, and so was my wife, a lot of other visitors that we've taken up there, that the first thing you see are the weeds on the bank near the slide. That should have been in the maintenance program from day one, and for a councillor to have to go up there or people to complain and say it looks untidy is very, very disappointing when we spent about $3 million on such an investment. The weeds around the bike track also, I can't understand why we would just spray the edges of the track. If we need to put something there for the bikes to zoom around, then we can plant varying other sorts of trees or put obstacles alongside of the park, the track. But to actually have summertime coming with marshmallow weeds 1.5 meters high along that track at times, I just don't simply understand that, and I'll certainly be working and talking to council about that.
Councillor, I reckon and I'm conscious of time, and I don't want to stifle your comments in any way, but I just want to flag we should stay with what we've got as the motion now. I'm sure Mr. Elding and the maintenance crew will be taken on board, because it is a new facility and there's a growth thing that we need to do that will learn from what has to be put in place. And I agree with you, it has to be maintained to a prestige level. So if you just stay with the motion we've got, that would be appreciated. And I'll turn my still off.
Got me back again? Yeah. Sorry, man. Just getting a bit excited here. So there have been other suggestions made with things, and in here we've talked about the chicanes going in and out of the mountain bike track. There could be one added to that, and that's going from this park to the other park on the back of the hotel road. So if that can be included in here, I'm more than happy with that. So that's coming down off the bike trail and then one the other side of the park as well. And we've got seating and bins, etc. But the other comment that I've had so much is that so many people there that we haven't got enough seating, and we should be looking at that as well. But I should commend the staff on what they've done with that particular area, but just very disappointed that from our opening on, and with so many people there, that we've left it rather untidy. Thank you.
Councillor Rees.
Yeah, look, I sympathise with Councillor Hearn's concerns, and I don't think this is the final word on the subject. That obviously we will continue to develop it and improve it as time goes on. I was actually at the park on, I think, the first Sunday that it was open, and we saw kids using the bank as an unofficial slide and ripping, causing massive erosion. And nobody was caring too much about it because they were having fun, and that was all fine. And we knew that was going to happen, and we knew kids will find ways to stuff things up, and that's why we love them. But that's, you road test these things by letting the kids get out there, use it, play with it, and have fun. And I think that what this process is about is, as the kids, pick the stuff apart and find the weaknesses in the system, our job is to then try to patch it up, and that's what this is all about. So yes, I suspect we'll be back here in 6 months, having another crack at it, because other things will be revealed. And I agree with Councillor Hearn that there are probably other things that can be done, and I'm sure Mr. Elding and the team will be keeping a very close eye on it. In regards to the signage, I'm glad Councillor Angus brought it up. I saw, I think it was Steve Fallon was circulating an email last night. There was never any suggestion of, in my view, of taking Anguston off the tower, but clearly the name Barossa needed to be on it. I was actually on that committee at the fairly early stages, and there was a lot of talk at the time about that, even though this is a regional place, it is in Anguston, but it is not Anguston's, it's the Barossas. So I think this is a very good compromise. Therefore, we recognise its place, but we also recognise that it is a Barossa-wide park. I think the Angustonians are very proud of it, not just because it's theirs, but because it's ours, and we're the custodians of it. And it's a wonderful asset which has taken a space which has long needed to be, had potential, but long needed to be carried out. So I think, this is just one more step on the road. I suspect we'll be back and adding to it, and I hope we do. Over time, we add more and more and more to this fantastic facility. So I hope you'll support the motion.
Councillor Johnson, then Councillor Hagan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just incredibly proud of this thing, and I'd just like to draw people's attention to the fact that the kids didn't get to road test it, so we didn't pick the holes in it as we could have because of weather and so forth. So in the report, it's quite clear as to why that's happened. I'd also like to defend Matt and his team, because given the kind of warm and wet nature of the last several months, if that's the only weed problem we've got, then I think we're doing pretty well. So I'd just like to commend everybody on what they're doing, and I think I'm sort of a bit perturbed that the Anguston folk think that we're potentially setting it up as a Barossa thing, not an Anguston thing, in that sense that if you call it Anguston only, then Lindog will want one and Williamstown will want one, so we've just got to be really careful to make sure it's seen as a regional park. Thank you.
Councillor Havey and then Ms Johnson, and may I add, there's many millions being spent in Anguston and the Oval and everything else at the moment, so I think they're doing pretty good well.
I'd just like to endorse what's been said about this will be an ongoing thing, and with any structure that we build today, doesn't matter what it is, you've got to iron out the problems as time goes on, and I see this as the first stage of it. And I'd also like to congratulate everyone that's been involved. I go up there reasonably regularly, and yes, it's been used very immensely, I suppose. The numbers there are great, and that's what we would have liked to see it turned out that way. So we're going down the right track, and Matt and his team have done a very good job up there. We can talk about the grass growing, it's the time of the year the grass does grow, and let's face it, there needs to be some maintenance with that going, and that will happen. So congratulations to everyone.
Thank you. Mr Thomas?
Through you, Mel, I just wanted to clarify in relation to maintenance. So it isn't just a product of Matt's team. There's arrangements in the defects liability period that the original contractor has some obligation, and we have an ongoing maintenance arrangement with them. Matt's team have done an absolutely fantastic job to support us with that process. If we've still got a few teething problems, which I think we can possibly do around who is responsible for what and to what extent, then we need to continue to work on that. But I wouldn't like people to think that it's Matt's team's issue. It is a combined issue for all of us to get this right. And yes, it is. It's the sunshine and the rain is doing a great job of making that more difficult.
Thank you. Yeah, and you've even got some teething problems with the way the mayor runs the meeting too, so we all got to accept one another a bit, don't we?
Not rain.
Any Councillor Wee-Smith?
I'd like to commend the work that's been done here. Obviously, yes, as has been discussed, there's going to be ongoing issues that arise, but I think where we're at now is really good, and the visitation we've had to Anguston and anecdotally hearing from the Main Street traders, this has been fantastic for the region. Like several others here, I did have a very big issue with the signage when I read that in the agenda. I think it's really important that each of our towns and communities have the opportunity to have hallmarks in their own region that they can be really proud of. And yes, this is the Barossa Adventure Station, and I want to see some signage somewhere identifying that, but to take away the Anguston sign, you know, as someone's already said, it's about the heritage there. It is the Anguston Station. It's a feature of the park, and yeah, again, I can understand where the Angustonians would be coming from. They wouldn't be very happy with us to put that one up and then a few months later just take it down because we decided it needed to be. So, yeah, pleased to see that Anguston's going to stay there, and I look forward to seeing some other signage identifying the Barossa Adventure Station.
Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. Next item is on page 523. Which is the Mount Pleasant Show Society upgrade of the show office upgrade project, documentation and costing, 523, with a recommendation from the staff. Councillor Barrett.
I so move the recommendation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Seconded Councillor Wee-Smith. Will you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. I thank staff for bringing this up the way they have, and also the additional 10,000. I identified that through the Mount Pleasant Incorporated body, and I'm glad that's now been included. And I also commend staff on point 3. After the lessons we've learned after the Lindog Oval, I think that's an excellent recommendation at point 3. So that's all I want to say, and say thank you very much.
Councillor Wee-Smith.
I'm really excited about this project. Mount Pleasant show is my local show, and I've been going there for as long as I can remember. And I really want to commend the work of the Show Society in getting this application up and being successful with it. I know it's not their usual work, and it did provide quite a few challenges for them. So Vicky, Sam and Neil and the rest of the committee did a really good job putting this forward and being successful in accessing this funding. And I'm just so pleased that Council is getting on board and backing this. And then, you know, you add into that Mount Pleasant Inc. deciding to work with the Show Society to improve the toilets and all of that. This is just a really exciting project for the Mount Pleasant community. I can't wait to see it finished.
Any further questions, comments? All those in favour of the motion? Carried. Next item is the environmental services on 538, page 538. Moved Councillor Louise Smith. Seconded Councillor Angus. Wish to speak to the motion? Any questions? All those in favour? Carried. (546) the soft plastics recycling pilot project on page 546.
I'll move that then.
Second.
Moved Councillor Haybick, seconded Councillor Troop. I have a question for Mr. Maverick. Light, have we seen any light from their financial contribution?
Didn't see that coming.
Through you, Mayor, that conversation continues through our regional waste management group, so hopefully they will allocate some funding.
Thank you.
I know where they made some savings.
Hopefully
Big fun?
I know where they made savings.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we do. All those in favour? Carried. Members, we now move to a confidential item to do with truck access onto the Murray Street Tananda.
Like to declare conflict of interest.
Okay.
Yes.
Councillor Troop has moved a conflict of interest. And that's a move to go into confidence. Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Seconded Councillor Hearn. All those in favour? Carried. We'll just pause the recording.
Application. So if you see them in there, you know, they do get found
Yeah,
out.
just the question of that note is, when will something go out to the trucking firms that what we've decided on here today? Because there's plenty of trucks and hard transport still using Murray Street yesterday, so.
They do anyway.
Look, the only vehicles that previously were illegal, were exempt to travel through Murray Street was those coming from Rowlands Flat and going through the town and going to Richmond Grove. The others that are coming through, yeah, we try to police it best we can with cameras and observers, but all of the other, and we're talking general access vehicles here, the B doubles have still got to stay out of it and stay on the B double route, and the other vehicles are supposed to keep out. And I think the letters that's been going out with the exemption clearly clarifies that when the roundabout is completed, no one should be going through there, and that includes all of Tananda cars.
Just that yesterday I observed a hard transport come in from Rowland Flat, and I followed it halfway up Murray Street.
Yeah.
So they're still using, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, look, you're correct. He was, until we tidy this up, he was probably going to Richmond Grove. I hope that's where he's going. If he wasn't, well, then that's another issue. But Hans and all them will be, I'll let Mr. Helding's the best to explain that. There you go.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. Until that letter is revoked, they have that letter, the drivers would have that letter on them, and so we'll be writing soon today to send out those letters to those trucking companies.
Instant approval.
Will they get those letters today?
No, not today.
Would you like me to hand deliver one?
Okay. A couple of days is not going to be a big issue.
No, the process will take care of itself.
Are they using exhaust brakes coming down off Marshall's Corner and going into Lingy Road?
I've got no idea.
Are they allowed to?
Oh.
Because that
It's
really drive all those residents
It's
nuts.
an interesting debate. It's a safety device too.
In all seriousness, when will they be told? Because I told members of the community that once this is passed, they won't be allowed on the street. So if they're driving on there tomorrow legally, the community will think that they are illegal. So when will they get the letter so I can say to the community, back off until...
We're out. Okay, we've
been recording since
yeah, we're out of that issue, so let's end there.
No, but seriously, we need to know when it's going to be implemented.
Oh, well, once we've made the decision now, the information will get out there.
But Matt's saying he's not sending the letter out today, so...
I'll get correspondence in the next 24, 48 hours.
Yeah.
48 hours?
Something like that.
All right.
Yeah.
People want to know.
Okay.
You won't believe how many people have been at me about this.
Yeah.
All right. Next item is me, I think.
Yeah.
Request for a leave of absence. So I'll declare a conflict, a material conflict, because I get an allowance to be here.
Does that report?
Councillor
Angus?
You need to
do this properly, yeah?
I nominate Councillor Angus.
Because the owner's not here.
Oh, that's right.
So the chair moves to me as the deputy's not in the chamber as well. So through the normal processes, I'll ask for nominations to chair this particular item.
Councillor Angus.
I'll second that.
Just by ways, you don't actually have to second it, but I'll take a second. Anybody else nominated? Fantastic. Councillor Angus, you assume the chair.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Ladies and gentlemen, members, the Mayor has asked for leave of absence. Is there...
I'll move it.
Councillor Hearn is moving. Councillor Haygood is seconding. Is there any discussion? Are there any issues? All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
Your Worship, that was quick.
Sorry.
Got to unplan your holiday, Mayor.
Just make sure Councillor Boothby's around.
We gave you leave, but we mucked around with the dates.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
Christmas, mate, you're not coming back.
Okay. With that, Councillor Angus.
Mayor, I seek clarification on a motion that was put earlier in the meeting regarding the tree committee from Tananda. We moved the receipt of their deputation because if we actually moved what was circulated yesterday as a potential motion, I would have voted against that in light of the information that was, and that motion or that recommendation that Martin said receive a note of deputation, continue with the tree replacement program with like-for-like trees. My question is, how much of that motion did we actually adopt? Does anyone know? I thought it was just receive and note.
Correct. You're correct.
Thank you.
That's why I left it at that.
Thank you. Can I just put one more question on notice? It's mid-September. We are in about the same position now as we were last year and the year before in terms of water in the Eden Valley area. I hope our infrastructure works are up to speed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, are you referring to the Eden Valley solution?
Yes.
It got lodged with the government about 8 weeks ago. We're still waiting for an approval.
Through SA Water.
It depends which piece of infrastructure I'm sorry you're talking about. Are you talking about
the
drought assistance fund?
Yes.
So that is waiting for the government to approve.
Thank you.
Okay, no, that's fine, Ben, that's fine.
Thank you. No further business. I declare the meeting closed.